Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant. Here is a compilation of one of the ongoing plotlines of my fan fictions that are used to explore and demonstrate the setting of Warhammer 40k. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. I do use musical themes, so often you will find the same tracks in each entry on one of these videos. But do bear in mind that these are musical prompts, for often the stories can be weeks apart in their continuation. So I feel the music kind of eases someone back into the storyline and the mood. Many an entry is the result of a vote, as I will leave many a tale on a cliffhanger, and then get the gentle listeners to forge the narrative by voting in the comments, so they can control the direction and events of the story. So, if you enjoy any of these stories, then do watch the weekly entries on the guides and prepare to exert your own influence and vote on the storylines. Now, I very much hope you enjoy the following compilation. He turns and looks me deep in the eye, and speaks more solemnly than I have ever heard. My master is often jovial, and there's a mischievous twinkle in his eye on oh so too regular an occurrence. He can be maddening, confusing, but also he is the kindest and wisest man I know. He does brutal things, horrible things, but he always explains why he has done them. When he does, I can see the pain those actions inflict on him, the suffering he experiences for what he does. What he is trying to train me to be able to do. To be strong, to do the terrible, and to be able to live with it. For to do otherwise means we are lost, to one day be an Inquisitor. But never once have I seen this look in his eye, a deep foreboding, like he is not ordering me, though his tone has all the gravity of his station and the implicit threat that is always there behind his words. But it feels he is more imploring me, begging me. I don't doubt one word that comes out of his mouth. You will do as I do, when I do, how I do. But you will not speak under any circumstances. You will not make eye contact or ever look directly into the face. If you break these rules, your life is forfeit, for I will take it myself. Without another word, he turns and signals the door to be opened. The other two Inquisitors standing at each side of the door step back, and it opens into a large room. I follow my master inside, head lowered as his is. The room is huge, but stark and simple, and at first I see nothing inside but walls and floors of white. From another segment of the apartments I hear movement, as someone walks out to this reception room. Such luxurious space of privacy. As the footsteps get closer, my master kneels, and I swiftly follow suit. The feet echo around the empty room as she enters. I'm assailed by a sense of calmness. I know it is not from within, as I can still also sense the trepidation of my master, the Inquisitor. No, I'm not a psyker. It is purely human instinct and the body language he has taught me in so much detail. Shoes of a strange design finally appeared in front of us. I can only make out the footwear and the areas of the person below the knee, with my head down in supplication as it is. Golden skin, smooth. Shoes that dazzle. I could not describe them now. I cannot understand why. A voice like a gentle breeze through a summer's morn caresses my ear, its intonation perfect, her bearing so regal, even from the little I can view. I hate to ask, Your Excellency. Then don't. I am without other option, or I would never disturb you. Then report, but get off your knees, and Thaddeus, drop the honorifics. The Inquisitor stands and I follow suit. Just a few seconds after, and much slower. I can see the worry in his movements, the care he is taking. He looks up into her face, but I do not. I am tempted, oh holy throne am I tempted, but I remember his words. I keep my attentions on her, but do not raise my eyes. Her garments are of a design I have never seen, but all are grace and beauty. I yearn to look further, but do not. The discipline my master has instilled in me is paying off, it seems. Before, my inquisitive nature could not have helped but look. But I heed my master, as he speaks with reverence, but a business-like candour with this person. We are outnumbered 5-1. They are heavier models and are gaining on us. We cannot escape them. We cannot outgun them. We cannot elude them. We are outmatched. What do you wish of me? I know you would never condone wanton loss of life, so perhaps if they were unable to follow us into the war? She takes a deep breath through her teeth, signaling her displeasure at his request without giving it word. I understand. Take me to the observation deck. But first, this one. Did you choose him because he is pretty? I think she's referring to me. His scales run deeper than the symmetry of his face, the carving of his frame. I know you are bored and must want for company, but I need this one. She lets out an exhalation of vexation, like she is on the verge of tutting at him petulantly, but her body language does not change. She is not offering to use me as entertainment. She is merely needling my master. Expertly, it seems, from the tension in his stance. For some reason my master is not seeing her as she is. He is decidedly distracted by her. What on terror does she hold within her gaze to unsettle and unman my master so? It cannot be beauty. From witnessing him purge Slaanesh demons, I know he is utterly inured to such things. Who is she? Then lead on, Thaddeus. I do not wish this to take any longer than necessary. My master bows deeply and I follow suit. He turns and processes in front of this person. I take his cue to wait for her to move and follow behind them both. The doors open and the Inquisitors we passed a moment ago are already standing in position. One will go before us, one behind, even me. In their suits of power armor and with weaponry of design I had never witnessed before entering this corridor moments earlier. They are defending this woman like she could be a target of an assault. On our own ship, a vessel of the Ordo, filled to the brim with more military power than I have ever witnessed on an inquisitorial vessel. I doubt even Astartes would stand a chance of taking this ship. So heavily is each and every corridor protected by the very best of our order. As we walk through the ship, our advent into any area is preceded by a chime and a slight dimming in the ship's illuminators. With each threshold we pass, we are met by the same scene. All are on one knee, with heads lowered in silent reverence. In some areas, there are seas of men and women, thus stock still and kneeling in awe. Her footfalls are slow and measured, but resound like thunder somehow. When she moves, she does so with all the poisoned grace of an Eldar. And yes, I do know how they move, how fast their warriors are, how deadly, how bemusing to their eye. We finally reach the observation deck, and it is already clear of any other soul. One of the Inquisitors in power armor moves to each entrance and stands facing it in defense of this being. Only my master walks into the room, next to the woman. I slow down as they do. I witness her place her hand gently on his forearm for a moment, and he stops as she takes a dozen more steps towards the viewports that show us the stars. I cannot see them, no human could, but I know they are out there. Everyone on this ship knows they are out there, just behind us, hunting us down, ready to blow us to pieces or board us, as they have attempted thrice now. But this time, we cannot escape. I had asked my master why. Why would other Ordo ships be after us? Why would other human and loyal crews want to see us dead? In this age where all are our enemies, all seek our downfall, I could not understand why our own people would try to kill their own. At that time, my master only stated, "They do not hold the views we do." That was all. I did not ask again. I never do. He will tell me when he thinks I am ready. He never forgets a question. I've had a question answered after 8 months of waiting, near forgetting it myself. But he remembers the time, the day, the second I ask a question and how. He forgets nothing. And when ready, he reveals things to me. And he is always right. I have never once received an answer and not known why he delayed my enlightenment. Never. He is watching her as it begins. The air around me starts to move, begins to swirl around the room, picking up speed. My hair begins to ruffle, then to be blown fully around my head as the breeze raises to a gale force. But it does not move the rest of me. It is no normal wind. Light begins to issue from her, all of her, starting out of my averted line of sight, but then it spans down her form and seems to be pouring from every inch of her that is on display. I cannot help myself. I look up. I can see her raising slightly off the ground as the light builds, and the wind now contains specks of that light. Like embers from a fire rising into the skies of a paradise world, they fill the room with stars that should blind me. But I look directly at them and the star that she is becoming without any discomfort. Past her halo of light, I can see the viewport. In it there are images coming into focus, like the most powerful of all specs. I can see the 5 ships that follow us. I can see them so clearly that I can make out their markings, similar to our own, but larger. These are ships of the line. If they catch us, when they catch us, we are dead. But more now. I can see their voyage shields around them. I do not know how. I can see them so clearly. Then I see faces superimposed over the ships, ghostly images coming out of them. Beings with 3 eyes. They're navigators. It must be. At first their eyes are closed, but at one, all of the images snap them open. They look at us with 2 eyes only, at the light that is woman before me. I feel their malevolence, their hate, their fear, opening their eyes at her, especially that 1/3 eye in the center of their foreheads. They are attempting to defend themselves. I know this. I feel it on an intrinsic level. I avert my gaze. It is unpleasant to watch. And that is when I see him staring at me. My master. He has a smirk on his face. He knows how long I have been looking, as he was watching me, not her. I did not notice his attention shift, so enwrapped was I in the vision. The wind that buffets only my hair, my mind is silent, so his whisper is as clear to me as a bellow. I was wondering how long it would take you, he says through his smirk. I am sorry. Who is she? What am I witnessing? You disappoint me, boy, but I suppose she is very distracting. So let's walk our way to it. Tell me, boy. Tell me the 3 things you know about the Emperor, the most important things I have told you about him. He is the most powerful man, the most important psyker that has ever existed. He is ancient beyond our understanding, and he has always watched over humanity. He is our salvation. Got it in one. I do not understand. Your first statement, boy. He is the most powerful psyker to exist. No, boy. He is the most powerful man to exist. It does not usually arise. It does not show itself. But in her, the blood sings. What? The Emperor is a man. He was always a man. My master slowly shifts his gaze to her instead of me when he says the next line, but a movement takes my attention down his frame. While he speaks, my eyes widen and then snap up to his face. I have seen the bolt pistol in his hand nonchalantly angled up at my forehead. If you ever disobey me again, boy, I will pull the trigger. I gulp. I look back at the light before us. The faces of the navigators are larger, and I can see their concentration, but her light burns brighter, and their faces begin to melt. Their expressions turn from anger into pain. She is killing these navigators. burning their minds. One by one, the spectral overlay of faces on ships disappear under the purging brilliance of her light. They are gone. And without them, the other ships cannot follow us. We can escape. He was always a man. He has lived all of the ages of humanity. But he is a man. You think the best of us. The master of mankind would be a eunuch, impotent or infertile. He looks at her with what I can only call is wonder in his eyes. In her, the blood sings. I know who she is now. And my expression joins his in wonder. We are travelling alone, yet not incognito. I am bemused, but that is a usual state of affairs for me. My master will explain if it is required. I have no doubt that when all of this, whatever this is, concludes, I will gain a rundown of actions taken and the motivations, if it is not abundantly clear by that time, of course. We travelled by a standard liner, and quite a lot more opulence than I am accustomed to, if truth be told. Dinners with the captain, tours by the XO. Baffling. We usually move so quietly, use our own vessel. My master must want us to be known, it seems. Upon reaching our destination, we took a small transport down to the planet with a dozen or so other wayfarers, into a calm and cool, but intensely sterile environment. As we stand in line to be processed, our travel permits perused and cleared, I attempt to gain my bearings. Smell. People always forget that one of our most powerful senses is smell. Every planet has a distinct smell. The makeup of its air, the ages of the world, how industrialized it was, etc. But each smells differently. I cannot smell anything but the metal around us. For a moment, it is disconcerting. But I am busy in other ways. Watching, weighing, identifying, as I have been taught to do by my master. He wears a calm air, but I can see the tension in his stance. He is wary, on edge. With none behind us, we stand separated from the queue, and we talk banalities, until the people in front of us are inured to any consideration of listening in. You're tense, my master. We are vulnerable at the moment. By design? He smiles at me, and I see the twinkle in his eye that means I am not disappointing him today. I spot the guards at the entry point to the world outside, as people muster there. The doors are not opened too often, it would seem. Certainly not more than is required. There were 3 guards, now there are only 2. Our advent has been noted, it seems. You will precede me and act as a beater. Do not slack off, or we will be overrun. But, I know. Keep my wits about me. Lay on then, Tarquinus. The doors slowly grind open, and we are assailed by the first kiss of the light from the powerful yellow sun over this world. And I immediately know why the door is usually closed, and there are sprays of some form of perfume aimed inside the port, as we are assailed by the spectacle of the bizarre bazaars of Bilius Brabataran. Try saying that after a bottle of Amasec. The light, sound, heat and smells are overwhelming, but in the most glorious of ways. We head out into the crowded market, my cane now being used as a club to knock people on shoulders and shins, to get them to back away to allow us to pass. After the initial surge of beggars and thieves have tasted the speed and strength of my rebuffs, they make a cordon around us, just out of my range. We process through the market, my eyes everywhere at the same time. Above us, are only 2-story white buildings, glaring in the light, perfect for an assassin. I am aware. We pass grills over an ancient sewer system, perfect for an assault or explosion. I am aware. Surrounded by bodies, my cane slams out regularly, but I am always watching every angle around us, looking for eyes too certain, the stare that will not be broken, following us out of a purer motive than just the contents of our credit bags. The sigils we wear, the badge of the Inquisitor so usually hidden, give some pause. I know I am having to work less hard due to its implicit threat, but my master is very tense indeed. He exudes an air of haughty superiority, but I can see his stance again. He is searching for something. We pass stands and stalls with every form of object, every kind of taste and smell, but still, he searches. A good part of the morning has gone when I see him take pause. We stand before some beggars, all swathed in those threadbare grey robes, bowl in hand, stretched upwards in supplication. My master stops, and I thrash around us to keep back the crowds. He makes his way to the beggars, heading to the front of their line. He places a very nice credit donation to one after another, and speaks to them swiftly but smoothly. When he gets to the last, he is closer to me, and I hear what is exchanged, all previous donations being a screen to this one event. Arms for the righteous? Are you righteous? I am not, but I wish to know if I can be of service to thee this day. Then you must repent, and yes, I have need of your services this day. If you do this, all debts will be paid. All? Indeed, all. Then find me in your shadow this day. My master stands erect again, but his stance has shifted. He stands more tall, less hunched, less cautious. He stands confidently, more so than at any time since we left his retinue for a brief respite. The hands on the beggar, just as he pulls the bowl to his stomach and encloses his entire form around it to defend it. They were too slender, too long. My master stands before me and calmly says, "Let us see how much influence is being exerted here, shall we, boy?" He makes his way to an inn of sorts, but when we approach the sign is turned from inside. It stands from vacancies to no rooms. We turn and see this happen thrice more over the next hour. The last one to do so has to come outside to winch his sign from open to closed. It is in this instant I catch him, and, with no small amount of intimidating body language, I bellow at him. "My master requires lodgings. You will remove a guest so he may recline." The wide-eyed terror of the short, portly man is almost comedic. He jumps, then bends into the lowest bower I have ever seen. One so low it seems to defy gravity itself as he speaks to my boots. Alas, it is not space, but illness that causes me to temporarily close my fine establishment. Might I suggest the Imperium's finest? It is on the hill, and commands a view of breathtaking beauty. It is the only place worthy of a man so important as your master. Well, that speaks volumes. It is as I suspected. Finally. Time for the end of our dance. Let us head towards the Imperium's finest then, shall we? For a moment, my master's eyes glaze as he speaks that last sentence, reminiscing. But in another instant it is gone and we move. We make our way to the centre of this bazaar, to its largest building, the largest luxury lodgings. As we get nearer, fewer and fewer beggars and pickpockets attempt to assail us. By the last few roads, we have passed guard stations that have held all of the rest of them back. It is much quieter here, but the intense smells are still present. The lack of crowds after most of the day amongst them is both relieving and also sets me on edge. Very few are permitted this high. Our badges of office and clear affluence mark us out as being amongst those very few. The Imperium's finest is not easy to miss. Standing on the very top of this hill as it does, one can see the entire valley and city from the stairs at the base of its entrance. Marble stairs, despite being windswept and having heat trails coming off their dazzling brilliance. We climb them and pass another thick door made of a transparent material, and are doused with perfume as we enter a cool, huge, pristine lobby. We go through the motions of checking in, and all the while being watched by almost everyone there. The bellhop, the receptionist, the multiple guards on the insides of the doors, all are trying their best not to stare at us, but failing miserably. Well, we are certainly in the lion's den now. We recline at our leisure at the refreshment area, slowly supping drinks for another hour, when we are finally approached by the maitre d'. He eloquently invites us to a luncheon with the owner. My master accepts and stands. I follow suit. Through the huge dwelling we are led, each room larger than the last, until we finally enter before doors that can only be described as palatial, regal. They are opened by the attendants within, and we process inside. As we do so, the doors are closed behind us. I snap a look at my master as I see what is awaiting us, but only visible when we enter the blatant trap. On either side of the room are two huge Ogryn. Two more behind us at the threshold of the room. A massive ornate desk sits in front of us. A chair behind it, intimidatingly large and eye-wateringly complex in its carving. And I mean eye-watering. So detailed, it actually hurts the senses to try to take it all in one go. All along either end, behind the Ogryn, stand around a score of ruffians and ne'er-do-wells, all in different fatigues, different weaponry, but mostly, like the Ogryns, they are melee weapons. A huge axe here, a chainsword there, possibly even a power sword from the hilt. Deserters. From many a company and outfit, but deserters. Trained killers. The staircase behind the throne has a doorway at its top, and it is slowly, dramatically opened. From this portal comes a huge man, well over 8 feet tall, unarmed, but his muscles seem to be flexing and unflexing and straining his clothes at all points. Tick perhaps? Nerves or excitement? Either way, he is one of the most imposing figures I have ever witnessed. He walks down the stairs slowly and regally, taking his time, but never once breaking his stare at my master. His face, now that he is closer, is a collage of 1,000 scars and tattoos. His eyes, dauntless and calm, but with a tint of red. Was it purple in what is supposed to be whites? Dressed in robes of exquisite finery, he still seems like a warrior born, a killing machine. He finally stops at the side of his throne, glaring all of the time at my master as he has been. He finally, languidly and ostentatiously looks at me, then back to my master. So, Thaddeus, our final act, and this is how it ends? No Terin, no Falcus, not even Barbon? I'm insulted. All you bring is a boy? Well, I wasn't sure, you see. And Tarquinus here is the most talented young man I have ever had the honor of knowing. He is twice the man you will ever be. I had hoped for a climactic end to our saga, my old foil. Yes, this is a disappointment. You come to my hall, my home, unprepared and practically unarmed, when I am more powerful than I have ever been. Now, you come not as an avenging angel, but as a beggar looking for a room. Have you fallen so far? Well, you're a funny one to use that particular phrase, Sergeant. I see you now house one of the never-born in your very body. How's it feel to share? Was it everything you have wished for? Was it worth turning your back on righteousness? Righteous? You dare say that to me? I've had enough. Our tale ends now. Here, with your head on my desk. Oh, I'm not alone. Nor am I unarmed. A figure steps from the dark, in one of the corners of the room. A simple being hunched in seeming decrepitude. It is wearing a threadbare grey robe, its face covered, but its long limbs now on show. You bring one Eldar to this battle. One! You've lost your senses, Thaddeus. I know. I thought it was overkill as well, but he insisted. Old debts of honor, etc. The being shook his head and merely extended his hand at the newcomer and rolled 2 words only. Kill it. Immediately everything exploded into action. The room was instantly filled with an echoing roar as the 2 Ogryn at the door powered toward the lone Eldar, now advancing into the center of the room near to us. The renegades and further 2 Ogryns at the side of the room moved more casually as they stalked forward, completing a fencing with both us and the Eldar at its center. The 2 Ogryns slow slightly as they get closer in an attempt not to collide, but they are well trained for their kind. One swings high, one swings low at the Eldar. I cannot quite make out what happened, as it moves faster than I can even process. The robe twirls in the air, and the Ogryns both stop stock still, their angry faces now in a dumbstruck rictus. The Eldar takes to the air and in one fluid motion he kicks both of them. The severed heads fly towards the desk and one lands on either side, both gawping at the Lord at its center, still standing beside his chair. The rest of the Ogryns fall into a dozen pieces each, blood finally flowing from what are now piles of bits on the floor. When the Eldar lands, it is finally possible to make him out correctly. He stands tall and proud, and he has 2 sleek blades in his hands, his body covered from tips of toes to head in a strange motley, a checkered patchwork of various bright and brilliant colours. Everyone stops for a mere second, as a sound begins to emanate from behind that mask that has 2 large horns jutting out of it, unlike any Eldar I have ever seen before. The moment ends as the being becomes a ball of light and pixelated colours as it moves like lightning across the floor, bounding and leaping towards one of the clumps of renegades. What I see is difficult to describe, so bear with me. It was like a ball of colour that coalesced at rare points, but more for show than anything else. As it danced its way around the men, blades and hammers, lasguns and even power swords went skidding across the floor or flew in the air as each one was disarmed and then torn to pieces. Blades moving impossibly fast and seemingly cutting through anything as if it were not there. The dance went on for less than 20 seconds. In the wake of this ball of light and wrath was a mounting line of dead. Nothing stopping it or even slowing it. Finally, when the full circuit of the room had been performed, the dust settled and the ball of colour and light stopped. All were dead bar me, my master, and the thing at the centre, now slowly walking backwards up the stairs, eyes wide in what could only be called horror. And they shall know no fear, unless of course they fall from the Emperor's light. My master now turns fully and looks at the Harlequin, now slowly padding towards us. I only need him alive. Smaller would be better for transporting. The Eldar nods once, and then somersaults into the air, coming down on the owner like a lightning bolt. He lands and his sword flashes out at his side, spilling a thick line of blood onto the marble floor. Over his shoulder, I see the arms of this traitor marine fall to the ground. He whines as he topples backwards and his torso leaves his legs in situ, forever just standing there. Now limbless and silent except for his glares at the Eldar and my master, he suddenly seems so pathetic. His scarred face twisted in a permanent glare, for that is all he can do now, impotently stare. Quit your lollygagging, get a move on. Get him into the bag. The most talented young man I have ever had the honour of knowing. My master takes out a large bag he has inside his own one and throws it to me. Not to, at. He had to think us weak, boy. Mawkishness is the first sign of defeat. As I unfold a bag large enough to hold my own form, I cannot help but quote again. Twice the man you'll ever be. Oh, shut up, boy. My master and I stand in an impossible place, in an impossible situation. As always, we have been called in by the local authorities. The Arbites, unable to fathom what may have happened. So we are called in. Because, of course, if the best minds in the constabulary on a very advanced world cannot find a solution, then it is highly likely there is something altogether more horrible afoot. For no other reason would they call in Inquisitors. 9 times out of 10, we are summoned to a vague rumour, or a mad woman who is just different enough to make the rest of her neighbours fearful. This time, it is what I call legitimate, an impossible assassination, an impossible kill. We stand in an oubliette, a holding cell in one of the most powerful families of this world. They had someone incarcerated that they considered so important, the information that they had either so sensitive or so dangerous, that they were surrounded by 10 foot of ceramite and plasteel, down a corridor of the same material, one way in, one way out. So we stand in said room, said oubliette, a fancy name for a dungeon after all. My master walks around the body, the large pool of blood around it. He takes in every detail slowly and meticulously. I circled the body counterclockwise to my master's clockwise. In this way, we should not miss a thing, even in shadow, even in error. But there is little to discern here. It is obvious. It is just impossible. All right then, let's go through this again, boy. Initial findings. The victim is dead. Time of death is exactly midnight on this world. He has suffered some form of extreme trauma or trauma-like effect. Vertebrae and all other bones are shattered. Teeth enamel has exploded while within his mouth. Eyes have popped. He is in a cell in a maximum hot security holding centre, with no way in or out that he could discern. Footage states he had no visitors and no way to smuggle in weaponry. Full body search and biological scan showed no sign of concealed internal weaponry, explosives or poisons. Walls of the holding cell are ceramite with plasteel fixings and entry hinges. Thank you, boy. Now, draw up a full schematic for this building. I need to see every room or opening within 100 meters, irrespective of line of sight or intervening, well, anything really. Cogitating. We have 3 options, Master, each within 100 meters. 2 heavily patrolled. The third is a sub-sewer intersection point. Well, I hope you brought your boots, boy. He grins from ear to ear as he says this. Wading again. Why does so much of our vocation involve wading through dross? So we explored the area. A huge boot print and some of the brickwork had fallen in around the roof of the intersection. Quite a bit, actually, and very recently. I thought so. So you're thinking what I'm thinking? Indulge me. No entry point. Mean the attack that slew their victim went through all of the intervening walls. Slaneshi blaster. At the minimum. Potentially a noise marine. Got it in 1. And the boot print says the latter, unless our assassin is trying to throw us off the scent. But the scent is now ours to use. Get Ursula down here, and make sure the rest are ready and on their way. We don't have any assistance today, and taking down a marine, any marine, is going to be a task. Turn, Falcus, even Barbon, especially Barbon. Get the whole gang down here. Within 3 hours, we are waiting again. It has been straightforward thus far. Unusual, but not unheard of. Strange to say, my master is actually very good at what he does. And what he does is destroy evil. Ursula, our sanctioned Psyker, took up the scent. She led us down and round, up and over, through, and then eventually here. Terran and Falcus are silent as always, stern and endlessly surveying our surroundings. Then again, never seen anything get past the twins. Barbon, all 8 foot of him, stands stock still and it is also silent. But there is an emanating wave of quiet threat from his huge form. He is one of the Astartes himself, an angel of death. He is on a duty of honor to protect and serve my master until the end of his days. But then, Barbon is over 150 years old already, Unless we are incredibly careful and amazingly lucky, Barbon will outlive all of us anyway, returning to his chapter when my master finally makes a mistake. We wait around the back of a small building. Its private walls rear high in the air, its gates strong. Another palace of one of the other noble houses of this world, but a small one. The names all blend after a while. The great or mighty or wondrous house of this, the superb house of that. Ugh. I know I'll remember their names until my dying day, as I forget nothing, as my master has taught me, as my augmentations have eased. But I fail to show interest at this point. We are simply here. Round the front, a large-scale invasion force of Arbites have been arranged. They have heavy APCs and are ready to take the entire building, but it will take some fighting. This particular lord has been in virtual rebellion for a decade, but he kept quiet. He kept himself to himself, running his quarter of the hive in the normal way. The assassin forced all to acknowledge the veracity of the bold claims made by the captive. A foolish act, if you ask me, as the victim had claimed that the house was preparing for a coup. The Arbites will roll in the front way. We will go to repay the favour by creep through the sewers and coming up that way. We schlep through effluent as the world becomes fire and thunder above us. My master is swift and sets the pace, but allows Barbon to take the head as soon as we get to the entryway. He takes multiple steps at speed, then crashes straight through the steel door, his power armor not even scratched. He walks in front of us, his bolter singing out and people exploding into plumes of blood and guts wherever he points it. When we reach open areas, the twins cover the vantage points, their las pistols burning neat holes through the foreheads of all who appear. And there are not too many. As we pass one of the security rooms, I see screens showing the carnage being meted out to the Arbites out front. Waves of sound slamming through the walls at the front of the building, leaving them intact, but then crushing and exploding anyone they strike. APCs have blood trickling out of open windows, all of them shattered. So many Arbites have been killed. The brave souls. As we finally make it to the door, my master orders Barbon to go through it as usual. But this time, he's to roll to the side, and we will not follow him immediately. If that is another Astartes, then we are dead if we do so. We are spread out down the corridor, in case he gets a drop on us and fires straight through the walls. Barbon runs at the door. I remember the day I met Barbon, Falcus, Terin, Ursula and Devrin. That was the first time I truly understood how important what my master did, how important he was. Oh, we had talked about it. I had even been a first-hand witness to it, his craft. He fought the things that others could not. He had saved me that day, when it rained fire and walls bled, when mirrors twisted and things of horror stalked the land unopposed. He had gotten me out of that. But fool that I was. In those first weeks, some part of me always thought it was more dumb luck than any skill on Thaddeus's part that had allowed us to escape. It was when he introduced me to his entourage, his assistants, that it really sank in. For the measure of a leader, an Inquisitor, is not in his own deeds, but in the caliber of those who believe in them, in the quality of his chosen, hand-picked resources, the men and women he retains. And somehow, this strange old man who wore power armor when he pleased, but was just as likely to be found in pajamas with pictor parchment in hand. Somehow, he had managed to array some of the most dangerous and skilled beings in the Imperium in his personal orbit. And he was so complicated, my master. Able to do the hard things without a moment of hesitation, but still human enough to regret, to mourn. Even when he knew he had no choice, he mourned the acts he performed. When I knew more, I found this to be so unlike most of his peers. They were hard and calloused and methodical. They seemed to be so shielded. So much of the monsters that they had hunted were hidden in the recesses of their glares, reflected in the horror in their every glance or stare. Yet not my master. He was so brave. He fought hard, suffered so much, just to retain his humanity. He never slept well, of so much I was certain, having shared many a cabin, bunk room or tent with him over the years. When we were safe, he would often drink some strong amasec before retiring, but never more than 2 glasses or shorts. He was moderate in all things, and all things in moderation. But I knew that the haunted look in his eyes was the lesser of the 2 evils, comparing his pain to the hardness of his colleagues, so many of the other Inquisitors. They trailed the darkness that they had fought around them, in their shadows and in their eyes. So it was that I refused Thaddeus nothing, as no one and nothing was expendable to him. If any of us, his entourage, were to be sacrificed, we knew it would only ever be as a last resort, never an expedient. And so we not only followed him, we adored him. Thaddeus always knew what to do. Falcus and Tedin had been hivers, gangers, but they had something that others did not. Speed. A kind of speed that matched up to even an elder. Thaddeus had gathered them upon first witnessing their mutation, is the only way I can put it. But as Thaddeus himself always said, "There's mutation and there's mutation, boy. What the eye sees as normal is the real teller for most." So they were fast and tough, and, as twins, would act in an accord that could never be trained. Deadly. With both their custom las pistols or with their long blades. Both still with red gang insignia all over them. They looked like what they were. Products of their placements, of their time. Killers. It was the only way to survive in the hive. Ursula was plain of form, but somehow alluring. Very. Thaddeus always told me it was a secondary effect of her gifts, for she was very gifted indeed, even amongst her kind. Powerful. She had proven it time and again, but she always despised using her abilities in combat. She professed to me once that she felt dirty on the inside when she was forced to kill or destroy with the abilities the Emperor had chosen to gift her. She knew that doctrine and dogma meant that, according to the Church, the Emperor hated her and she was unclean as a witch. But this never seemed to be absorbed. Ursula snapped back at me once when this was all brought up. "So, the Emperor, the greatest psyker of all time, hates me for being a psyker? Rubbish. Priests. Petty men with a tiny power and jealous of the fact that I was born closer to his image, his substance than they. I spit on them. Not the Church, but them." But she never said that again. Just the once. It was enough. I discussed it with Thaddeus. He laughed, which surprised me. What surprised me more is when he turned and looked me in the eye and intoned, "I can teach you much, Tarquinus, but I cannot teach you how you will relate to the Church or the Emperor. If you make it, boy, as an Inquisitor, only you can define that. The most important of all our relationships, the one with our Lord, our leader, the master of mankind. Ursula is useful and loves the Emperor every bit as much as I do, or you do. So I accept her tantrums, her explosions. It will be down to you to manage the relationship with your entourage one day. Good luck." Devrin and Barbon. Almost as inseparable as the twins, but as different as the twins were identical. When the twins were left alone, there would be endless chatter, yet silence when anybody else was present. Anyone but Thaddeus. They played things close to the chest. Devrin and Barbon were the polar opposites. They just seemed to gravitate to each other. Never a word was said, never hobby, activity or discussion was performed by the two together, but they somehow always managed to be in the same area, most often in the same room, just doing their own things in close proximity. But when others entered the room, they were more than happy to discuss or even be sociable. It seemed that Devrin always managed to put things in a way that made Barbon chuckle. They simply lit up when someone else was there, but went back to their quiet contemplation when left to their own devices. Not moribund or melancholy, just satisfyingly quiet. They found the presence of the other calming, is what Thaddeus once confided in me. A rarity for either to find peace, he explained. so one that he was always loath to breach unless with good cheer or a dire need. They deserved the quiet, he thought. I can only imagine what they had done, what they witnessed, what they had achieved, for my master to be so reverent, so accommodating. But I could never work out Devlin. He was witty, mentally fast, yet could stay in a set position for days without moving, just watching for his mark. The patience he had for a man whose mouth ran so quick was awe-inspiring. Barbon was Adeptus Astartes, in everything he was and everything he did. His movements were graceful but economical, his poise perfect despite his bulk. Barbon could be used as a watch, his patterns were so rigid, yet he was able to breach them at need. It was a choice, never a ritual. Order, discipline, but always under his control, never he under it. He was as economical with his advice, never interfering unless specifically deferred to by my master. He would occasionally raise an eyebrow, which then permitted Thaddeus to request advice of his own accord. But if my master ignored his signal, then he was sanguine about it. Always calm. Always. But his art was so passionate. It was at total odds with everything he was on the exterior. When he sparred, he moved so fast I could barely make him out. I once recorded his entire workout and played it back in slow motion, just so I could see what he was doing. My master had laughed until tears ran down his face when he saw me gawping at the sight, ration bar in hand hanging in mid-air, never quite making it to my mouth as I was so mesmerized at what I was seeing. The beauty and ballet of Barbon's dance, the flow of it. "Barbon is something to behold, eh?" he said when he finally could breathe. "He specializes in multiple foes. The more the merrier. The more against him, the more dangerous he becomes. Even amongst his kind, the Space Marines, he is a gem without measure. We have not seen his kind since the days of the Crusade, and he wears it in his features. If anyone ever recognizes Barbon in a crowd, not just the awe of the Astartes, but a shock of recognition, kill them immediately." And everything that I have witnessed since has supported this assertion. For when compared to other Marines I have witnessed fighting, he is a sight barely to be believed. Like a caged beast was within him, that only came out when he drew his sword. He was able with a bolter, but not substantially better than any other Marine I had seen. But his bladesmanship was, well, it was just Barbon. He seemed to have difficulties when Ursula was around, but he was always courteous, always honourable, never callous, yet never warm, and never initiated conversation with her under any circumstances. And she returned the favour. Something that Ursula was also well aware of, and she went almost into shadow if he entered the room without her knowing it was to happen, like she was somehow making herself smaller, almost subconsciously trying to hide. And so our adventures had taken us to this world, where we had been involved in an impossible kill and an impossible murder. Using Ursula's abilities, we followed the assassin back to his lair, a small but heavily defended private manor in the midst of a hive. Inside we know to be traitor Astartes, followers of Slaanesh, Noise Marines. From the blasts that have come out from the front of the building, there are more than one of them. Diabolic tainted sonic screams are tailing into the small army of Arbites, local law enforcers, that are throwing themselves at the front doors. They are not making headway. The courtyard is strewn with bodies of these brave men and women, their teeth shattered, their skulls and skeletons split and crumbled, their eyes, eardrums and organs burst and rupturing, if not liquidized. No cover can stop the waves of death that emanate from the structure, as it is not just simple sonics. There are elements of war power in these sounds. They are carried through inanimate without interruption, striking with all of their force at the bodies of their foes. Death that invisibly cones out from the building and kills. Terrifying. Yet the Arbites are still trying, still distracting the men inside this room. We have quickly moved through the building from its rear, the twins or Barbon executing any we have stumbled upon, any who have attempted to impede us. And so here we are, the Noise Marines behind the one wall, the one door, hopefully oblivious to us. Hopefully. We all stand in the hallway. My breathing is swift, sweat forming in my palms that grip a pistol and a blade. Barbon is similarly already gripping his power sword, having stowed his bolter. The twins hold pistols in both hands. My master, Thaddeus, alone of all of us, has no weapon in hand just yet. He nods at the door and at Barbon. The Marine, in his livery removed and covered black armour, takes 2 paces back and then rushes the door, going straight through it and into the room, rolling to the left. It is a good thing he rolled, as the air he was previously in only a nanosecond earlier is torn asunder with a screech of sonic so loud that the secondary splash near bursts my eardrums even with the protectors in. The sounds rip down the corridor and we're almost blown off our feet just by the residue. Terran and Falcus speed into action. Both cartwheel past the doorway, one from the left to right, one from the right to left, having the quickest of shufties and firing in a few rounds of lasgun fire each to distract. I am more than willing to bet that each las shot hit its target, but with a Space Marine involved, I am not sure the strikes will penetrate any of their armour. Both continued to cartwheel, meaning that what they saw was of deep concern, something that Thaddeus immediately confirms. His link to Barbon flashes up 6 stars, not 1. His eyes widen and he swears below his breath, and then rounds on Ursula. I follow his vision, and Ursula is looking at me, the way a hungry grox leers at fodder, like there is a dark need in her eyes. My master's hand flashes out and slaps her across the face, hard enough to break her stare and grab her attention, but not an actual blow. Trust me, I know how hard he can hit in that armour. Ursula glares at him. Then her eyes widen as his hands are now grasping 2 things, a page of parchment in one hand and a sharp, thin metal stake in the other. Getting some residue from the deviants, I see, girl. No time for that now. Tongue out, Ursula. Damn you, Thaddeus. I suspected this was your plan. You're going to the warp for this. You know that, don't you? As this exchange went on, the cacophony that was erupting from the door was deafening, but scintillating also. I close my senses to it as I witness what happens. Falcus and Terran run back and perform another somersault, firing while they are going, attempting for one to go high, one low, but both firing in to support Barbon. Barbon, who is alone in that room with 6 noise marines. Terran lands but continues to move. But Falcus, poor Falcus. He bounds further down the hall, only for one of the Sound Marine's cones of force to tear into one of his legs, pushing him off balance. It went straight through the wall, shattering every bone in the limb. As he lands badly, a second cone slams through the wall into him, while he's on the ground. In less than a second I see his upper half and head encased in this attack, as it strips his skin from his face, his skull, bursts his eyes and shatters his teeth as I look on. All in less than a second. His teeth, pasted with his blood and skin from his face, are now on the wall behind him, which the blast disappeared through. Terran, his twin, his brother, concludes his movement and swings back to see the broken wreckage of Falcus. He stops and just looks at his brother, his jawline bunching and unbunching as he grits his teeth. He's shaking slightly as he begins to make his way to the door. I know he intends to go through it. Thaddeus snaps his view back to Ursula, his face now masked in the most aggressive sneer I've ever witnessed as he snarls at her. After everything I've done, I doubt I will ever stand at the side of the Emperor. But Ursula, you forget one thing. Everything I do in his name. Now, in his name. If you don't put out your tongue, I will cut it out. Ursula does not resist. Her eyes close tight as she pushes out her tongue. My master does not hesitate as he grabs its end with the hand holding the parchment. He is placing it on her tongue while pulling it out. His other hand then comes fully over his head and powers down with the small metal spike as it goes through her tongue, then directly into her jaw. Her body goes rigid and her eyes flash open, light exploding from them. A glyph on their parchment also glows like a star. The light seems to form a bubble around us momentarily, then erupts out, passing through the walls and floors around us. Ursula is laid down by Thaddeus very swiftly, as if he has done this all too many times before. He then charges towards the door. He shouts, "Stay close! Not too close, but stay behind me! Behind me!" as he just manages to beat Terran to the doorway, and all 3 of us charge inside the room. As we pass the threshold, I am dazzled. It happens quickly, but I will try to explain. Difficult, but I will try. It is a very large room with 3 huge windows at the front all along that side, so large are they. The panes are broken and blasted, but outwards not in, as there are no shards at the feet of the men there. I say men, but it is pushing the definition. Barbon is engaged with 2 of them, huge as well, all wearing power armor, all Astartes, Space Marines. Our foes are all adorned from head to toe in ancient marks of power armor, resplendent in the purple of the once proud Emperor's children, the 3rd Legion, if memory serves. But many are twisted. The armor now rainbows of impossible combinations of colours that should never be put alongside one another in hues so vibrant I did not know that they could exist. They hurt the eye to look at, or would do normally. But as this is definitely one of those battles, i.e. one that could easily be my last, I see it all through a mild haze, as the concoction of combat stims course through my body like a bobsleigh and make my perceptions more acute, yet more directed. All my attention is on their movements, not the details, thankfully. 3 of them are at the windows, but perpetually in motion, impossible to target easily. They hail fire into the courtyard, murdering as many Arbites as they can. They are doing it with glee from their posture, fingers dancing across keyboards to generate the sounds that are weaponized by the power of chaos, Slanesh, the Prince of Power. Barbon, as I said, is engaging 2 of them in close quarters. The more the better, as I was told, so he maneuvers their battle to pick up one of those from the far window. When they come close enough, in one unbelievably fluid motion, the noise marine drops his weapon and draws his blade, and just turns and blocks one of Barbon's feints towards him. And all 4 move off again. Barbon is not technically better than any of them, certainly not better than all of them combined, but he is an expert in this, the confusing battle, the multiple assailant melee. He seems to be getting faster as he uses one of them to hinder the other, constantly striking at them, not permitting any to escape or disengage. He wheels around the room with them like a planet, they his satellite moons. So there are only 2 left firing out of the window. But back to our entry onto the scene. I was dazzled. This was due to the pyrotechnics to my fore. As we burst through the door, 2 Marines aimed their blastmasters at us. I felt dread as the waves of energy moved towards us, but they didn't hit. The light that had sprung from Ursula, it had made a shield around her that stretched halfway into the large room. When their blasts hit the wall, colours seemed to be drained out of them and spread around us in a shell-like pattern. I can only presume that it was the element of the sonic attack that is warp-spawned, as force continued towards us. As it struck Thaddeus, I was expecting to see a repeat of the horror that had been done to Falcus, but no. As they hit, a shield sprang around my master. The force was changed to light, blazing light. Hence me being dazzled, as I said. For my master was employing his conversion field. It was the rarest of all devices, he had told me. He even confided that it was of Juquero make. But this made me laugh, as I had thought he to be joking at the time. Now, I have no idea. All I know is that the force waves that had killed Falcus were now rays of light. My master now strode towards them with purpose, but one broke off to his right. Terran was 3 steps ahead of me as always. He was so damn fast. He moved to intercept the 2nd Marine, but I can only imagine. His wish for revenge, his fury got the better of him. No wonder. His brother had just been blasted to a puddle in front of his eyes. But he was too far ahead of me. Those 3 paces that meant so much. I was not able to stop what happened next. Again, the Astartes moved so quickly. Their order, the discipline in total odds with the hectic, chaotic stripe and swirl in their almost comedic armour. Terran shot at him with his las pistols, charging all the while closing the distance. The Marine seemed to cover his face with his left arm, while his right dropped the blastmaster. The lasgun shots bounced off, or were absorbed harmlessly by his power armour. Terran was now on him, and dropped his pistols and drew out his power blades. The Marine just moved faster. He dropped his arm and grabbed the left wrist that Terran's first blade was in. The Noise Marine caught it with ease, twisting it and snapping it in a millisecond. Only a split second behind the first blade, Terran swept at him with an overhead attack. The Marine caught his arm and lifted him off the ground. Terran struck out with his left leg. A kick aimed straight at the Marine's helmet-covered face. Alas, the Marine caught that too. Terran's left leg and right arm in his fists. The Marine then just stood up and extended his arms. His span was huge, being all of 8 foot. And Terran could not stretch, so he snapped and pulled apart. Terran's arm and his leg were wrenched so quickly that they both came off. Blood was everywhere. He fell to the floor, but was then unceremoniously kicked at me, his blood filling the air. I ducked the body, knowing we were both dead if it hit. What was left of Terran smashed into the wall behind me. It sounded like an overripe fruit bursting. I did not look back. I could not afford to, but nor did I want to. Meanwhile, one of the Marines at the window is thrown off his feet, a precise hole in his helmet. He is down, but still breathing from the noises coming from him, as Devlin introduces himself to the fray. The other Marine at the window takes cover and then does something unexpected. As my master was about to engage the noise Marine in front of him, the other shoots Thaddeus and hits dead on. The conversion field kicks in and turns all of that sonic power to light, the warp taint having been shorn off by the field from the unwilling Ursula. But the light blinded my master, and he shielded his eyes for a split second. The very split second, a grenade was tossed towards him by the noise Marine only 5 paces away, who then immediately took a good few more back. The grenade was solid, not energy, so passed through the field and explodes in a plume of fire and noise right in front of Thaddeus. He is lifted off his feet and thrown backwards, but I know his power armor has taken the brunt of the blast. The sound and explosion, bodies thrown or kicked, all have been used by Barbon. As his foes are distracted for only a second, he kicks one in the chest, sending it sprawling, turns and beheads another, and cuts deep into the leg of the last. With the pain only enhanced by their strange nature, the noise Marine shudders in pleasure and lets out a gasp as the power sword bites into him, but no amount of pleasure can defeat biology. Barbon then drags the sword out, kicking the side and back of the leg, bending it. The noise Marine goes onto one knee and is twisted towards his allies. Barbon then inserts his sword into the neck of the traitor, not right through it, but at the side, and a good amount in. If the Marine moves while Barbon takes his sword away, then he will die in less than a minute from blood loss, Astartes or no. All Barbon has to do to decapitate a Marine is to just put on more pressure. The noise Marine knows his position and instantly plays statue. Pity, as it seemed we had the upper hand. It was then that I noticed movement in my right corner, and the Marine I had been about to engage, the one who had killed Terrin. His gauntleted fist smashes into my head. I am glad that I had taken the cocktail and shut down my pain receptors, or the shock may have killed me. The fist connects with my face and crumples all before it. My cheek shatters, my jaw and teeth on that side buckle. My eye socket splits and my eye is destroyed. I can feel the jelly of it dropping onto my cheek. I drop like a sack of manure, as we used to say in my hive, but he does not let me fall. The Marine grabbed me by the shoulder, twisting me as I dropped. Then he steps forward, forcing me forward onto my knees in a mirror image of the position Barbon has his captive, and he inserts a blade into my neck in a parody as well. I know I am dead. There is no circumstance where I get out of this alive now. And so here we are. I watch as my master stands and takes up position next to Barbon. The Marine Barbon had kicked away rights himself and advances up to stand next to the Marine who has me. So here we are. 3 Marines about me, 1 on the floor but alive, 1 dead by the hand of Barbon and 1 in his grasp. And for this we have lost Falcus and Terrin, and only Barbon and my master stand. They are one side of the protective bubble thrown up by Ursula. We are on the other.
Thaddeus. People think it's my name. It isn't. It's a rank, a myth, a legend. A cowl I donned over a century ago. The enemy has names that strike terror into our most accomplished warriors. But eventually, the victory is gained by dint of the fear generated by the name, the sapping power of certainty of loss. The endless are our enemies, so they can accrue such reputations, such legends, potent weapons unto themselves. So we turned it on our foe. We tried to generate our own legends. But not in our world, oh no. The legend, the myth, was to be generated in theirs. A fear that would sap them. Thus 40 of us were born. It was a test, a trial, but the longest-running experiment that the Inquisition has ever undertaken. The traditions, the masks. An experiment that is about to conclude, for I am the 99th Thaddeus. There will be but one more, potentially our last, and there are but few traditions left, few that have made it through the long eons, the long ages, without being snuffed out. We, the Thaddeus. We are the respected, the revered, even amongst our own, the traditions. We are one of the few who represents the balance. We are the Thaddeus. And our tradition at least feels the experiment has gone swimmingly. It's a look of eye-widening horror on the face of the terrors we meet when we declare our name. The demon that howls with recognition of the rank, and then fears. So we believe the tradition must be upheld. At least, it will not be in error that our line ends. And as we draw close to the reckoning, the final judgment, we all scramble for the exemplars that will see our line to conclusion. So they have to be the best. And he, the boy, Tarquinus, he is the best. He is my destiny, to find him, to train him. It's the only reason I am Thaddeus, for there was another, even more gifted than I, more driven, and now an implacable enemy. He has sworn to end the line, but if I do not act swiftly, his wish may be granted before he even has to raise a finger. Tarquinus, my boy, is in danger. He is a gem without measure, a rarity even amongst these wondrous stars, and I have never entirely worked him out. But I know potential when I see it. Oh yes, I do. It was impossible to miss, if I am honest. I felt the hand of the Emperor that day, I think, guiding me. All hell had literally broken loose. I had not been in time. I had taken only half my larger entourage that day, but it had not gone well. We ended one of the rites, but we did not know it was one of many. The rest had not made it out. If only Barbon had been there. Curse my timidity in the days that approached that battle. So, injured and alone, I wandered the streets of a demon-infested world. And from a large building, many rushed out onto the street, screaming and howling in sheer terror. For the walls bled, and mirrors were the portals to the ether, and many dark things stepped out. It was chaos, as it was intended. Formless, never-born entities swept across the fleeing herds and possessed any they felt. As they turned, they then gutted all around them. The slaughter was great, as one after another was possessed by these demons. And then, amongst all of that, I saw him, Tarquinus, and his miracle. A larger entity rippled through time-space, leaving only distortions in its wake, headed towards the boy. It then surrounded him, and his head snapped back and a howl emitted from his burning lungs. A howl of triumph, an inhuman howl. His muscles began to bulge and his head to twist, lifting from the ground. This was no lesser entity in play, attempting to make a puppet of his flesh. But then it happened. The boy just started to shake his head. I could see by the strained muscles around his neck that it was pure will. He was being fought every inch of the way. He is being fought the entire time by this greater entity. The slow move from side to side in a clear, no action. Deliberate. Eyes scrunched tight, jaw clenched, almost to snapping, he continued. And as he did, he started to lower to the ground, the corona around him diminishing, until finally, with one last slow but decisive shake of his head, his eyes snapped open again as his feet touched the ground. The distortion around him exploded out and dissipated as it went. He, Tarquinus, the boy, a lad of only 16 maybe, had thrown off the possession of a greater entity of the warp. I ran to him, as he gormlessly looked around as if he had not known where he was. He was in shock, as he should have been. By all rights, he should have been in a coma for weeks, his eyes burnt out at worst. But there he was, standing alert and awake, if bemused. How? I grabbed him in the crowd, and he merely followed me. We moved fast. We dodged many a close call that day, but finally we got back up to my shuttle and off the planet. All the while he was bright and alert, until finally he got into a cot to sleep, and he did so for 3 days. In all those days I did not sleep. I watched him like a hawk. Anyone possessed could be a conduit or have their minds shattered by the experience. What woke up could be very different to the gentle boy who went to sleep. But he was like a cherub. He did not mutter, cry out, or simper. Not as I had done when it happened to me all those years ago, when I was twice his age, had the training to survive it. Even so, it near broke me, and that was a lesser entity. The boy understood when he awoke in restraints. He was calm and thankful for being saved. A wise young man indeed. We talked for hours. I had to check. Finally, he asked me to leave him in his restraints and go to sleep. So tired was I, he said. Kindness or a trap? I left him and watched him remotely for 3 further hours. Auto guns trained on him at all points. I awoke 8 hours later with him humming and whistling to keep his spirits up. Over the next few days, I discerned that he was deeply affected by the shock, the trauma on every level that was witnessing the destruction of his settlement by the evil damned ones. But he was managing. But of the possession, he remembered nothing. As the days passed, whilst we travelled, we spoke more. I took down his restraints and attached him to a table instead. I'm not an idiot. He moved compliantly and saw the necessity of the deed. So logical for a young man. So empathic or analytical. But any of those traits were good. And so it began. I'd been chosen as Thaddeus for one reason. Above a man far more talented in nearly every other way. I could see the potential in others, and I could teach. My rival could not. I was literally chosen just to maintain the line and to find the best possible successor and to train them. And I had found him. In Tarquinus, I had found him. He was ravenous for everything I could teach him, worryingly so. He absorbed information like a sponge. Recall was phenomenal, even before I trained him in how to master his mind. He was brave, possibly his greatest downfall, actually. He would rush to the assistance of others without a second of hesitation. Something I had to beat out of him, I can tell you. Always assess first. Always. But it oft transpired that he had. He had already weighed all of the variables and simply acted anyway. Confident. I liked that. But again, it had to be tempered, and that takes time. I tested him regularly, frequently and remorselessly in all of those years, still never understanding how this boy could throw off a demonic possession so easily. I had even considered that he might be Sensei. I would explain a lot, so I took him to meet one. Her. The most powerful and sensitive I knew of. He interested her, so much is true, but he was not the same as her. He was no child of the Emperor. Yet she told me, in private, away from the boy, that she could awaken him. She was almost frantic to do so. She said a burning star was hidden within the folds of his mind. She was astonished that he had not awoken of his own volition, knowing the adventures and evils I had subjected him to. Yet still he was contained. But he was not ready then. I wish I had let her do it, had let her awaken him there and then. Perhaps I would not have lost the twins should his power have been released. But it is always a risk I was not ready to take with him. As I said, he was the one. I had trained many an apprentice by this point, over a half-dozen, but Tarquinus, he was the one. He would be Thaddeus when I was done. And I am too old to start again, and in Tarquinus, in that boy, resides potentially the most powerful and effective, most exact personification of what it is to be the Thaddeus. So he cannot die. Not now. Not like this. Our line would end. So I have to take drastic action. The fool. He just had to rush in and avenge Vulcus and Terrin. Silly sod. Time to burn some relics, take some chances, for the stakes are simply too high not to. I can hear the escape vehicle now. Some form of VTOL, I'd imagine. Heavily armed, I'd wager. And if I've heard it for the last few seconds, they've heard it for the last few minutes at least. They're playing for time. Good. Time to give them an excuse to protract things. They only need an excuse at this stage in the confrontation. And so, here I go. Wait! Don't be hasty! We have much to offer, and the boy is a mutant. He has a noise you will never have heard before. They stop dead. We all do. Barbon has his captive as much as they have the boy. The captive is a noise marine. He sliced its leg and put it on its knees, sliding his power sword into its neck. Just for the threat of it. But the enemy mirrored the effect with Tarquinus. He had to run in to try to avenge Vulcus and Terrin. Now he is in great peril. Even so, even with half his face missing, crumpled and bloodied like a folded picture rolled in red paint, he is still alert. He seems to be concentrating on something. Perhaps just staying awake, perhaps not. They all look down at the boy as I nod at him, giving him permission, and he begins. The Marines all look at me with a cocked head, thinking exactly how droll, and how much more they are going to really take their time in killing me, when I have their undivided attention for that split second. I let it loose. My last one, damn it. But it was worth it. A fascinator. A rare item found on a planet near the Lair homeworld, wielded and devised by a race that had fought the Lair when they fell to Slanesh worship. It did exactly as categorized. It fascinated. All followers of Slanesh can only take so much stimulus before they are overwhelmed. But this simple object of light was so perfect. As to a normal sentient, it was a dazzling curio. But to a Slaneshi warrior, it was the center of the universe. All three conscious Marines gasped at it for a split second. Barbon and I moved as one, exploding into action. Barbon hooked the head off of his captive, and dashed forward to strike, was met with power steel of their own. So well disciplined, the training of them, the Emperor's children, was still very much present, and the noise marine attempted to drive Barbon away from the others, so as to keep it mano a mano. I stooped low and snarled, "On me!" as a hail of bullets then tore into the back of the second noise marine. Some went clean through, but none in vital locations. The marine staggered, but did not fall. I cursed under my breath and extended my hand at the marine over the boy. At the last, my hand slipped down and a beam came out of one fingertip and struck Tarquinus. He was covered in a blue shimmering field, a field that surrounded the segment of the blade inside his neck or so. The marine above him attempted to put in pressure to cut through the neck and behead the boy, but nothing happened. The field held the boy in some form of vacuum. Of course I knew exactly what it was. It was one of my digital weapons. Well, we'll put it this way. It was complicated, very few uses, and this was one of the last. I did not use it without some regret, but it was important. The blade then came off at the side, and the Marine took another few paces towards me, past the immobile apprentice. I drew my sword, stood tall, and said, "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Do you have any idea who I am?" The Marine then barked, "I'm sure you'll tell me." "I'm Thaddeus." The Marine took one faltering step backwards instinctively, More out of surprise than any real fear, I think. "Pleasure to kill you, Thaddeus," said the Marine. As he stalked forward, the doorway is suddenly filled by a harrowing vision. A woman, well, of course we know her as Ursula, with her tongue gushing blood, yanking on a piece of paper. The piece of paper I put there, I guess. As she prized it loose, the first time ever I'd seen this. The page burnt, and then the bubble around us all just burst. The light from her tongue then burst from her eyes instead, as the noise Marine stalking forward at myself and the one nearly toppled by gunfire and then slammed backwards. They skid across the floors and slam against the walls. The escape vehicle arrives with thunder as it blasts all below it into tatters. Missiles and chain guns crisscross the entryway and butchers more of the arbites. The two blasted backwards turn and then jump into the waiting VTOL. The duel between Barbon and the other Marine of Evil has been one of waiting and pacing, looking for advantage. As the Marine finally turns to run for the transport, he is just fast enough to elude Barbon. Just. Ursula is now staggering to where the boy is held immobile. It will fade very soon, she knows. She's seen me do it before. And she knows she will have to use all of her power of healing to save him. If she can. But I know everything will change now. Because Ursula has never had the energy to even roll her eyes before. Not while under the effect of the gaze I impelled on her. So someone must have impelled her, infused her with power. And I think I know who it was. It has happened at last. Time for Tarquinus to be rebuilt in so many, many ways.
Ursula is sullen, but is as thoroughly entertained as I am at Thaddeus, keeping his word. The days following the attack were calm. It was only 3 days ago now. We have literally months for Thaddeus to do his thing. Because he worked out within an hour of interrogation that the being who shared the body of this insignificant and underwhelming assassin was indeed a minor being of chaos. But what followed was odd and very funny. Well, as torture goes. I could not quite understand it at first. Thaddeus had requisitioned one of the interrogation rooms in the brig. He had the entity in a cell covered from ceiling to floor in glyphs, wards, sigils and icons. No 2 inches were bare of markings that acted to constrain the being within. All the while, he, Thaddeus, sat behind a field and chortled as he piped music and images in at it. The being screamed and howled, but could not be heard from behind the field. So, as I watched this, my curiosity got the better of me. I had to ask, "Master, what are you doing?" At that, Thaddeus allowed me to hear the music playing and the visuals that were being bombarded at the being while its eyes had been stapled open and its arms and legs, well, the remaining one, were strapped to the chair.
"'Cause I'm desperately in love with you, desperately in love, desperately in love with you, I'm desperately in love." I keep on stalling.
Please make it stop, please! No! Well, I said he could assist me, or I would be unpleasant. So, as he didn't break quickly, I am being unpleasant to him. Also, I want to send a message. When I do send this thing back to the warp, I want it to take my compliments to its master. And so it went on until the demon begged for mercy. Then, and only then, did my master let it leave, carrying a song on its lips and resonating through its entire soul. A soul that would be returned to be one with its master, with this gift contained. I can only imagine how angry the greater entity would be. Yes, Thaddeus had a reputation to maintain, a reputation in the warp.
one he so desperately deserved. He really did enjoy his war, with them, with chaos. We so rarely had the upper hand, so he played it to the full. I mentioned an attack. Well, that would take us back 2 days. I was, as usual, ruminating. My life has changed. My very being has altered. I not only look and feel different, I think differently too. So much has changed since that encounter with the traitor Astartes, the Noise Marines. Where do I even start? In many ways, I think my master was waiting for this moment, for these changes. He seems as giddy as a schoolgirl, as he would say, the anachronistic old fool. Not when we discuss my augmetics, that is for certain. He is never bouncy, does not show any excitement when we discuss them, despite it being the end of my present state, of being so very vulnerable. I live, but my body is shattered. Yet my mind, my soul, it has, as he puts it, blossomed. We have been travelling to a planet, one out of the way, but important. He states I can be healed entirely there. It cannot come fast enough for me. I lost an eye, much of my face is crumpled. My arm has reduced mobility and utility. My neck still itches at night. I know there is no good reason for it, but when I wake up from a particularly lurid dream with my neck itching, it is as if the ghost of the Prince of Pleasure inhabits my very bedchamber. But, as I always did, I spoke to my master about it. Thaddeus always knows what to do, what to say. So wise is he.
So, let me get this straight. You are having, enticing dreams, is that it?
Yes, they are ribald.
How old are you, boy?
22 in a month, as you well know, master.
And you don't think that has anything to do with it? In your prime, eh? It's been a long time since you, had some shore leave. That added to a near-death experience. Well, you'd have to be a eunuch or a minister to not have some form of itch to scratch. We'll dock soon. Perhaps you should, get some, shore leave.
In this state, I look like...
Oh, don't be such a baby. We're going to get you some cybernetics when we dock. Where we're going, they have the technology. They can rebuild you. Even that face of yours. You sure you don't want a nose enhancement? More regal, a large schnoz, imposing. When that's all done, well, then you can, get some shore leave.
You think that is all this is? Despite me having a cursed blade through my neck. It has nothing to do with it, are you sure?
Process of elimination, boy. Get some, shore leave, then see if you still think you're descending into a pervert of the worst order, eh? There is a preponderance amongst our kind, those of our calling, to blame everything and anything on the machinations of the dark powers. It's a road you do not want to go down, or you will be useless to me. So, eliminate the possible causes, logically, but always bear in mind that humans are humans. Our urges are a part of us as much as they are a backdoor to the corrupting powers. We made them, the dark gods, not the other way round. Nothing wrong with a good bit of, shore leave, if you keep it pleasant and even have some lovely feelings to share. We're human. Denying every aspect of that is exactly what the deviant Eldar attempt. Yuck! You wouldn't want to be like one of those degenerates, would you? No, of course not. But, boy, use precautions. Your seed is now a ticking time bomb. Be responsible. Don't go repopulating the universe on your shore leave, eh?
I very much doubt I'll get the opportunity. I've seen those with bionics before. Not exactly attractive.
As I said, we have the technology. We can and will rebuild you. You'll be back to giving Ursula sleepless nights again in no time.
That was a month ago, and it has been a long and grueling month. Painful too, if I'm honest. But he was right. I didn't even need a mirror when I woke up. I could see it in Ursula's eyes as she and Thaddeus looked on as the bandages are removed from my face. She has that shy smile as I make eye contact. Good. I am not repulsive anymore. But oh, what's this? The eye contact. Now that I have my robotic eye, it is everything he said it would be and more. I can see every little iron in her eye. I can track the speed of dilation. I can see everything. Barbon and Devlin are there also, further back, but present. Now, if anything had been amiss, I know for certain Devlin would not be able to resist a comment, or be able to remove a mischievous twinkle from his eye, thinking of the appropriate prod to get me riled up. But both look at me and nod sagely. I exhale in relief, before I even catch my reflection in the surface, confirming I am fine, before the apothecary assistant gets to pass me a mirror. But I go through the motions. I am astonished. I look the same. Despite having an eye made of metal and framing all along my skull, I look normal. My tongue finally recovers from the soporific effects of the sedation, and I can feel through it again. It runs around my mouth and traces the edges of perfect teeth, where before there had been but an empty and broken jawbone. He was right. They did rebuild me. I look at Thaddeus and grin up at him. His quizzical and often stern countenance drops, and he beams back at me.
Well, after you've had a bit of a rest, we'll get the tech priest in here to run through your new capabilities. Then it's time to get back to training. I know you miss it so much.
Her again? Of course. I mean only one person. The woman I had met once before. The one Thaddeus called a Sensei. A powerful one. She had taught me first, before I had even really recovered from my injuries. Thaddeus had taken me to her and dropped me off in her apartments. We spoke of many things. She explained many things. Kept me safe in those early days when my blossoming mind was still vulnerable. She explained that her power meant that none of the denizens of the warp could find me, but only when she was close. So for months we spent every day together, every second, until I always passed out before her, exhausted beyond anything I had ever known. At the start, I wished that we had fixed my body first. I felt weak and confused by only having one eye, but it ended being the best decision. As Thaddeus said,
your body is now only the vehicle for a greater power. You will learn to wield it safely. We'll learn how to be safe before we can go to get your augmetics. Be patient. Learn how to move with your mind. Leave your body to later.
He was right, of course. And she agreed with him. She would tease me that I was less to look at than of yore, but perhaps my recent downturn in appeal would assist with her keeping concentration herself. Light-hearted banter to lift my spirits. She had no more interest in me than she did anyone else. But it helped.
No, I don't think so. She was useful in keeping you safe until you had learned to hone some of your abilities. In lightning fast time too, she reports. Not that I am surprised, of course. I knew you would not let me down. Would take to the training naturally. Would do in months what others did in decades. But I feel it time I pulled in a few markers. See how things are done properly, perhaps, by someone who is adept, but not perhaps as naturally gifted as your last master. She makes everything too easy, I feel. I think you need a rod now that you are back on your feet. Not more pampering.
He has no idea how far she pushed me, how fast. It's not easy to learn about eternity from someone who can manipulate it as easily as a master painter a brush. Her strokes with the warp were fine and delicate, unlike my hard swipes, where power was always there, but no subtlety. But she was not coy about the dangers of the warp. Took me to see things, witness things, that I would not have thought possible, would not have dared to dream existed before now. She introduced me to a whole other world, a world of wonder and terror. Taught me the very basics of how to defend my mind, with the psychic hood that is now in my new armor. It is enough for the moment. Yes, I didn't mention that. Thaddeus not only gained me a new eye and had my face repaired, but he also gained me power armor. I still find it difficult to move in, but that will come in time, he said, but the hood helps. One day I shall go into it more. Ingenious piece of equipment that it is. But for the short term, let's just say that it makes me stronger and protects my fledgling talent from those dark beings that would attempt to consume me. Thaddeus stated that the only way to get used to armor was to wear it. So that I have been doing. I do not actually know if it is the armor he wishes me to get used to, or that he wishes he and others to be safe in my presence while I wear a psychic hood. In the end, what does it matter? I will have to get used to both anyway, so why not both at the same time? Sleeping in the suit is difficult, but a skill my master wishes me to also gain. So I do. The old tyrant. Never enough time for anything to be done the easy way. But then, he is the Thaddeus. He wages a never-ending war against evil, and, as is said, idle hands are the Dark One's playground. So it keeps us all on our toes. We go. I know not where, but we book a trip on a carrier, our own vessel out of use at the present. But that is a long story for another time. It is when we get to the ship that I realize how far we are to go. To Ultramar itself. The 500 worlds. Some say they are a paradise within the hell that is the Imperium Greater. A thing I had always wanted to see, Ultramar. And we are going there.
Well, Tiggy owes me a favour or two, and the men we are going to see will be there. I have no doubt that they will be able to discern your abilities even better than she could.
I know this to be a lie. A white lie, but a lie nonetheless. Why? I overheard them when they thought I was busy one day. Concentrating as I was on the task I had, she left as someone requested an audience. I heard the heavy armoured feet of my master and the hushed tones of their exchange. The only words I made out clearly were very direct, from her to him. No, she said, I will not teach him to be a weapon, even for you, Thaddeus. You will have to get someone else to do that particular piece of dirty work, for I shall not. She would not be moved from this. I knew it when I first met her, first beheld her power on the observation deck. But now, having seen her, learned from her, I was adamant she would not be persuaded otherwise, so it was final. And thus did Thaddeus have to try to find another teacher for a psyker who had not been through the usual training, not being the usual age, not being the usual power levels, if all reports are true. So it would be a very special individual we would need to be meeting. I was excited. I won't lie. I had been introduced to a new world, a new existence, a new way of thinking and experiencing, but I did not know how to use it. I knew that seeking power for its own sake was a pathway to peril and damnation, but if the right teacher could be found, perhaps I could learn to utilize my new gifts for the entire human race, could learn to confront demons and denizens on their own footing, be a warrior of light for the Imperium. This I wanted. To not only be a wise man, as Thaddeus had been training me to be, but also to be a powerful man. Not so I could lord it, but so I could use it. So I could strike down the evils that had taken so many of our entourage over the time. So I could save lives. So we went. It was a night that we were invited to dine with the captain that had happened. I was, as usual, being sat by Ursula, who definitely looked at me like she wanted some shore leave, but obeyed Thaddeus. I know he had spoken to her about this. Strangely, he was not enamored of matters of heart distracting his support. Thus we were warned not to get distracted and to keep our urges to without the circle, not within. But we were growing in our friendship, now that we had so much more in common. It was natural. But then it happened. I knew something had changed immediately. My master, Thaddeus, had gone to get prepared for the dinner and had one of the only rooms with a shower in it. Yes, he was so respected on this ship that they made water available for him to simply run over his body for pleasure. Well, hygiene as well, but the effect could not have been anything but luxurious. It was while he was in there that I felt, which is the only word I can use, I felt his tension increase. I sat bolt upright and looked Ursula dead in the eye. We both went to rise when the door opened and something came in. It was small, hand-sized, and rolled to a stop on the floor near us. Ursula sat cross-legged in front of me, and I was in the largest chair there, the only one that could support my bulk in my armour. It was between us. The thing gave off a high-pitched whine and then popped open. Dust filled the air and dashed everything within 6 foot of it, covering Ursula and I head to toe. Ursula's eyes widened further, and then she juddered, convulsing as though sitting on a live wire, and all of its current was put through her body. But there was no charge. I felt the same. The dust caked my face, my hair, my eyes, my neck, all over the front of my armour, and with it I felt a yawning chasm of emptiness open up within me. I was not affected as badly as Ursula, but she had been connected for most of her life. I had only just found my connection. So when it was cut, she reacted like the very breath had been robbed from her lungs, and no matter how she gasped for air, there was no way for her to feel them. I was disturbed, and somehow alone for the first time since the battle with the traitors, the Noise Marines. My head felt like it was splitting asunder, and I clasped it with my gauntlet-covered palms, as if to keep my head from cracking open. The pain was something else. My connection to the warp had been closed, snapped shut by this confetti somehow, and it felt unnatural and like it would never end. I would never again touch eternity. I slumped down and felt so desolate as ever I did when I thought of the loss of the twins, how I could not stop them from being killed. But in that instant a man came bounding into the room and leapt towards us, and I could no longer feel Thaddeus. Elsewhere, shuffling, the door slides open, and from behind a shower curtain a voice came out.
Damn it! So this is the way it ends, eh? Caught with my trousers down, unarmed, naked and afraid. Do I at least get my final words?
The person who had entered the room, who stood behind the curtain, the shower curtain, answered. Oh yes, I will record them all for posterity. The last words of the Thaddeus. How does it feel, old man, to be the last? To know that a lesser being will take your life?
Lesser being, eh? But hardly a mere man, eh? Even over this water I can smell the stink of heresy. So sharing a body, are we?
What is it to you? Say your last words, Thaddeus.
Well, seeing as this is my last blast, why not a riddle? I do so love riddles.
There is no riddle devised by mortal man that I do not know. Proceed. I will defeat you in this before ending your existence.
Have you ever heard the riddle of the bolt pistol?
I thought not.
It goes like this. What walks on 4 legs at dawn, walks on 2 legs in the noon, and ends its existence on 3?
You dolt. This is the riddle of the Sphinx, one of the easiest and oldest riddles there are.
Well, what's your answer?
It is man. He walks on all 4s as he crawls at the dawn of his life. He walks on 2 feet, at his apex, his noon, then slides into needing a crutch, a cane, to support him in his dotage. Thus he dies on 3 legs, his own 2 and 1 for the cane. It is man.
You guess wrong!
At that point the curtain is yanked back by a naked and angry Thaddeus, and he points a bolt pistol at his assailant. He shoots one round from the bolt pistol into the kneecap of the humanoid being in front of him, as it penetrates and explodes outward in an instant, covering the walls, floor, and the curtain that has now been pulled back by Thaddeus, with blood, gristle, and bone. The being falls forward onto his 2 hands, and 1 remaining knee, the other blasted apart. The shower curtain is ripped back again.
Look! The answer! It's you! 3 legs, eh?
The being looks down at his hands and 1 knee, then looks up at Thaddeus, and would spit at him, if not for the desperately clenched jaw that keeps it from screaming.
Now, don't be a sore loser. Who else is there, eh? You can't expect me to believe an idiot like you came all on your own.
Thaddeus lashed out with a roll of hearty kicks into the stump and the stomach of the assassin, winding it before he kicked it onto its back and brandishing the knife he had also taken to the shower with him.
Fess up quickly and I will be clement. Hold out, and I can assure you, you will regret it.
As I stand, he comes at me. But he is probably expecting me to be more groggy than I am, or perhaps he thought I would be utterly incapacitated as Ursula is. Perhaps it is the fact she is here and so much in need of my help. Let's not forget she saved my life from those noise marines, or I would be a headless thing rotting or made into corpse starch. But no matter the reason, I move as fast as I am able in the suit, and it proves fast enough. He simply runs at me with some form of ornate power weapon, a power sword. So he is well equipped, but his first strikes prove he is no trained assassin. Don't get me wrong. He is a killer, all right, a grizzled and experienced slayer of men, but he is nothing special, and he is no match for me. Why? Because I not only watched Baldermort train, I learned from it. Now that I have power armor, perhaps he will permit us to use real swords. Well, metal ones at least. I remembered every training session he gave me with our wooden bokken, and this twerp is no barbon. So he looks as ungainly to me as I do to him. My armor will not be entirely safe from his power weapon, so I draw mine and block his first sallies. I use my increased strength from the armor to bully boy him away from Ursula. A better trained warrior would be evading me instead of parrying, but he is so used to being the stronger in any duel. He is surprised and on the defensive before he knows what hit him. I drive him towards the door, hoping to get him out of it and then close it and lock it, to regain some breathing room and to see if Ursula is all right. He's just outside when a single bolt round hits his head and explodes all over me. I am literally covered from eyebrows to shins in his viscera. I stop dead as he is now, as his body just topples to the ground.
Hello? Boy, are you there? If so, put your hand out of the door first. Slowly.
I do as instructed, and place my left gauntlet out of the door and wave while saying, hello?
It's okay, you can look now.
I put my head out of the doorway swiftly and look down the hallway. And there he is, my master, Thaddeus, bolt pistol in hand, in a bathing robe, and with his left hand curled into the hair of someone who is literally dragging down the corridor. The hands are over his, trying to tug free, but a leg is off above the knee, and a huge swathe of blood is left in their wake. The wretch he has is tugging weakly and pathetically at his hand. But he also has a rune cut into his chest, bloodily. A rune of binding, I think. Swiftly done, but a powerful one from the look of it. Made a new friend?
Everywhere I go, you know me. I love to chit-chat.
Ursula! I dive back into the room and come to stop over the prone form of Ursula. She's shaken and has a fever. She seems to be muttering, but is clearly out cold. Thaddeus throws his captive into the corner and whips up the cylinder that fried Ursula is now still cutting me off from the warp. A strange feeling now that I have felt it for so many months, like someone removing music and sound from the world.
Don't fret. She'll be right as rain in a few days.
Days?
Well, perhaps earlier.
What is it?
A very specific, very rare, and very difficult to acquire weapon, designed especially for people like you and Ursula.
But what does it mean? I don't know about your one, I say, signalling to the still bleeding man so unceremoniously dumped in the corner, but ours was not what you would expect. Adequate for a standard target, I guess.
Oh, there are lots of things going on here, none of which I am certain of just yet. But first, now that I know you and Ursula are okay, I must prove that I am a man of my word.
With that, he rounded on the thing in the corner, the one he imprisoned and then tortured, and really enjoyed every last second of it.
I feel you must be puppied out. Let's try widow mousies. Lovely, aren't they?
We kneel, all of us, in utter unison. We are one. Hundreds of ceramite-covered knees striking the ground at the same time. The thunderous echo rebounds across the inner sanctum, our cathedral in the void. Its highest points barely visible without our helms. Its huge viewports allow us to witness eternity while we receive the sermons. We hear the litanies and the catechisms. We are the anointed, are the pure. We are the sword of the Emperor himself. We are gathered for the muster, the final preparation before we strike. Recently our crusade was met by transports. Some hailed from the fortress monasteries in this region, replenishing our ranks, but they were untested, untried. Thus did the initiates without neophytes walk the ranks, perusing the candidates. And all candidates were chosen. All silently tapped on the shoulder by a known warrior. The one action signalling that they had been accepted, that the next phase of their time amongst the Black Templars had already begun. The initiates were full battle brothers, and would train their neophytes in all that it meant to be a Black Templar in the service of the God Emperor of mankind. They had been trained already, of course, had been put through the trials and challenges that would break any lesser man. At the fortress monasteries they had been honed, drilled, groomed, drilled again, mostly with live ammunition, culling the weak from the strong, so they were not babes in arms. In any other era of humanity, in any other circumstances, they would already be the greatest warriors that humanity had ever produced. Hardened killers, paragons of martial prowess. But this was not some halcyon era long gone. This was the age of the Imperium, and the challenges and trials, the horrors that they would face were far beyond anything humanity could once have dreamed in its worst nightmares. So, despite their training, their equipment, their gene seed already elevating them to something so much more than human. Despite the fact that they were already Adeptus Astartes, the Emperor's own angels of death. To us, they were still raw recruits. Still snot-nosed dreamers who had barely the first clue of what would be expected of them. They were swords, but they were dull. It would be up to the initiates and the example of the sword brethren to sharpen them, to give them an edge that would not only allow them to live, to survive, not only allow them to serve their emperor, but also to bring low things that had never been faced in eras prior. For we, the Black Templars, are the sword of the Emperor. We are his wrath. And we swear our oaths so that we will never forgive their transgressions against our race, and never, ever forget them. The enemies of the Imperium, the traitor, the mutant, the heretic, the witch. We are the scourge. We are the firebrand. We are the rake that clears away the vileness of the galaxy. His galaxy. For unlike many of our cousins, our kind, the Space Marines, we do not skulk in our fiefdoms, desperately clinging on to control, ever reacting and never acting. We do not protect a guttering light, as some of our melancholic kin believe they do. No, for we are the Black Templars. We are the sons of Sigismund and Dawn, grandchildren to the Emperor himself. His righteousness runs through our veins. It is our duty, our reason to exist, to be the eternal crusade. Thus do we bring the light to the darkest corners of the galaxy. His galaxy. We are the tsunami that washes away the filth that would contaminate our Imperium, our worlds, our race. We, the Black Templars, have never ceased in our eternal war, our eternal crusade, for over 10,000 years. Thus do we live our lives on our mighty vessels as we ply the stars, not reacting, but acting. We hunt down the foes of the Emperor, annihilate them from the least to the last, no matter where they be, no matter where they hide. Our words, no pity, no remorse, no fear. They are all we need. Our oaths and our devotion to the God Emperor of mankind. When the chaplains end their litanies, our marshal arises first and takes his place at our head. As he turns and addresses us, 2 inquisitors with their entourages enter the stage and stand alongside him. One I recognize as Saulot Brachus, a painfully short and dainty man, but with a steel in his gaze and bearing that more than make up for his diminutive stature. His entourage surround him like a clutch of chickens, all clucking around him whenever he is near the front. I have witnessed it. The Ogrin seems especially ludicrous in his presence, sloth by name, but certainly not by nature. The armoured Goliath is touted to be the equivalent of a marine. I doubt that. but hope it never has to be tested. For Brachus may well regret making that claim. We have worked with him extensively before, Ordo Hereticus. He has sniffed out many a nest of witches and heretics for us to purge, hence do we know there is foulness afoot. The other Inquisitor hails from the Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters, and so it seems we're in for a proper fight at last. Culling Xenos is one thing, as they are vile in the eyes of the Emperor, and should be stricken from his realm without mercy. But it always fills us with greater zeal when we know that our targets are to be the true enemies of the Imperium. The witches and their never-born allies are our reason to exist, the reason for the Eternal Crusade. And I am proven right, as our marshal outlines our targets, our priorities, our goals, and our foes. Thus were we to face not only witches, but the soulless, the never-born as well. Demons. Good. It will be a battle worthy of our mettle, worthy of our attention. When finished, he has outlined 5 main objectives, where our Crusader Squads will needs be to hold the line and push the foe back. The specialist units are solid, but the battle line squads are not, as with other forces. Our brothers have pretty formations and numbers and ordered lists of battle, you see. But they are armies. We are more than this. We are a crusade. Thus do we act as such. We allow the men to go as their calling and their passion follow, to fight alongside those that they choose on the field of battle they wish. All will be under the control of the chain. All will do as instructed by the marshal. But in this moment, in this one instance before the battle is joined, our structures become static. We form our own units, our own crusade squads. 5 different sword brethren stand, one by one, claiming that they will lead the assault on one of the strategic objectives. They stand and raise their swords high, moving into a separate area of the cathedral, and proclaim their objective and honor as they stride. And we initiates, with our neophytes in tow, our squires, we congregate at one banner or another. The zeal in our hearts burns away jealousy, fickleness, or antipathy for those around us. This is no popularity contest as it would be in some other chapters. We choose to fight at the side of those who have the same goals, the same drive, the same style. It is no negative reflection on those bands we do not join. We are and always will be one. One chapter, one crusade, one purpose. And within 2 minutes, there we stand in our 5 squads. Some are larger than others, but this is due to the magnitude of the tasks given, and also the complexity. My neophyte and I stand with one of the larger squads, but it is utterly logical. We are to arrive by drop pod landing, and 2 squads must create the bridgehead, must clear the landing ground for the others. Usually, we would not need perform this action, the entire force coming down as one, in a lightning raid of fire and fury. But we have the Inquisitors to protect, and no normal mortal, power armor or no, could survive the impact of a drop pod landing. Thus we must clear a landing zone for these illuminous guests on our battlefield. It will be a simple task, but the probability of casualties is high. The bridgehead or forlorn hope is always thus. As it is simple, as it is of high import, as it will be a desperate and instant struggle for life and victory, it is where most initiates take their very green neophytes. They will have to fight from the second the doors open. Ha! A true baptism in fire. Thus are our squads the larger, breaching the dictates of the Codex Astartes with impunity. Heh! We are not ultramarines and will never pretend to be so. We will arrive in multiple drop pods per squad, as they only house 10 marines. And so, without fuss, confusion, bickering, dickering, or drama, the squads are decided. And within 2 minutes, our structure for the battle is set. The next hours pass without incident or interest. Methodically, ritualistically, we march to our departure deck and gird ourselves for war. As we do, we note the one marine chosen to be his representative, his sword, his will made manifest, the greatest of honors. And then we launch. I am his sword. I am his honor.
I am his revenge. On the dawn before our battle, I awoke, but stayed in a dreamlike state. For my very soul was afire, my mind the receptacle of his might, his vision. He has chosen me to be his vessel. He shows me the images of the deeds I must perform, the foes he has chosen for me to bring low. My eyes dart from one vision to the next, the dizzying kaleidoscopic vista of futures. All is in flames. All is sin and degradation. And so he sends me. But he points the way. He shines his light into the darkness and the depths of the souls of these wretches. He shows me who I must defeat in his name. For on this day, I am his sword. I am his honor. I am his revenge. I am the Emperor's champion. Launched from the depths of our ship, our Cathedral of the Void, our battle barge, we hurtle through the skies. 10 of us locked into the walls of a cylindrical missile, a drop pod, each an Astartes, a space marine. Our power armor black, anointed, holy. A gift from our grandfather, a second skin of ceramite we can feel as well as the first. Our black carapace permits this. Many wear power armor, not all even human, but it is only we, his angels of death, that feel it like it is our own body. We who harness its full power. Our ship fires down a spread of shot to soften the area, is how they will feel or construe it, if they have but one tactically gifted mind amongst them. This may be true of other chapters, other sons of other lineages. Not so for the sons of Sigismund, the never-ending crusade. For us, the fire is to drive the foe toward our landing site. Our drop pods will destroy more on our arrival, but it also means that they will be herded in around us. There will not need to be a headlong initial charge against a wall of guns many times the bodies we have. No time for them to bring up their heavier weaponry. No distance for them to take aim and swallow their fear and pull a trigger. No delay. We will be amongst them from the instant our doors come down, and when we are amongst them, they cannot use their firepower. Hence we will thresh them, mow them down before the dual fire of our faith and our hatred. Our chainswords are chained to our arms, for the neophytes and initiates. The sword brethren here has his power sword thus locked. All are stood stock still while we plough through the skies downward, ever downward. I am the odd man out. I am not in their crusade squad, compromising 2 drop pods full of Astartes. But this is the only place open, and it is right and proper that I will be the first out of the door, the first to engage the enemy. Fire starts to whip past us, but little. My stomach slams into my throat as the thrusters fire at the very last second, sending massive plumes of fire and thrust at the ground. It makes our impact slightly less jarring, but it would still shatter every bone in the body of any normal mortal. After 2 swift successive chimes, the doors are blown off, leaving us 5 doorways to exit. I'm the first to disengage their holding anchors, the first to the door, the first to leap out. The other benefit of the thruster fire is that there is a blast zone around us of some 10 paces. Scores of burning and blasted forms lay there, a cull of the foes from our advent alone. My mind does not even register the charred stench so akin to swine on a spit. I'm amongst them before the first has even drawn his weapon fully out. They are packed around us, as was intended, and I begin my charge through them. My paces are swift but measured, my stance perfected over 100 battles. I see all before me, to the side of me, and snatch glimpses while performing my dance. Instinctively, without conscious thought, my mind maps the next 3 strikes encounters. The man I will kill, the way his body will fall, how it will open me to the high stance attack of the next, but how I can block and then run him through and onto another that is directly behind him. The foe are rabble, slime, only human. They are malnourished, but insane, poorly armed with makeshift melee weapons, but filled with the power of their dark masters. The claws of chaos dug into their souls as much as their clearly corrupted bodies. They will not break easily. I continue my march of doom, slaying all who come before me. My brothers are behind me, but not with me. I'm not in their squad. I'm the Emperor's champion. My role is separate. I lead by example. My targets require I range the field as I wish, as the Emperor commands it, where he leads. But for now, I see the initiates leading their neophytes into the encircling cultists just behind my wake. The other pod landed a split second behind ours, more landing all over the drop zone, as per the plan of attack. The Crusader Squads started with 19 members, each a pair of master and squire, and the sword brethren who leads them, of course. Not that the men need leading. We know what we must do. The 2 score of us clear the enemy in less than 2 minutes, never stopping, never ceasing, never showing mercy, never showing doubt. Even the neophytes take at least 2 score each before we are done, and they finally stop rushing our lines. The last of them turning and charging back to the central hab block, no doubt telling themselves that they go to warn their masters, instead of that they run from justice. They run from the ire of the Emperor. The landing ground is secure ahead of schedule. As I wait for the Storm Raven to come down, I note that we have lost 3 neophytes. 2 slain in melee, the last I see beheaded by a sneering, cold-eyed initiate. The neophyte had frozen. He had then whimpered. Sometimes we get one. I'm never sure how, but sometimes we do. Nonetheless, he is gone. I hear sounds of battle all around me. Streaks of missiles and darts of laser light flash across the skies from building to building. The Storm Raven comes in. It swoops down and then hovers for half a minute only before it is gone. Out of the ramp drops the 2 Inquisitors and their entourages. Saurat Brachus and his force are first. Saurat is tiny, entirely covered by his men. Sloth. The towering Ogrim with slab shield. His Crusader Knight stands to his other side, shield held high, as is Sloth's. Behind them are Sororitas and a Ministorum priest with his chainsword already revving. Ordo Hereticus. We have fought alongside them many times. He has a good nose for the heretic, the traitor, the witch. He leads us to them. The other group seem less comedic. Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters. An older man jumps out, their Inquisitor. He is special, some say, one of an elect group within the Orders, but I ignore rumour, and thus have no real knowledge of them, nor do I care. As long as they are here to destroy the enemies of the Emperor, I am content. He has an older marine with him. I can see it in his reactions. But what is this? His black painted armour covers the white that was clearly once on his shoulder, the chain from his sword to his arm. This Inquisitor has a Black Templar with him, or a pretender. I know not which. A younger bald man, eyes bright, darting from one place to another in quick succession. He looks handy for a human. He stands with his lord like a wolf, about to be unleashed. Mechanicus priest is with him, and what looks very much like an assassin. Bodysuit, intricate and rare weaponry. It can be none other. The boy with the eyes is slapped over his bald pate by his lord, like a child being cuffed to get out of a parent's way. It is the sneer that covers the face that makes me think that this is not an avuncular gesture. The Inquisitor seems peevish, but dauntless. His armour is old, power armour though it may be. Old, and of a design I've never seen before. Heh. The benefit of a status as a special or elect Inquisitor of some sort. No matter. As soon as they land, our Crusader squads form around them, and we push forward. Before us is a tangled web of hab blocks with walkways betwixt them. Every smashed window and eye socket from which a cultist could lurk. Literally hundreds of vantage points from which to shoot down. It may prove to be a trial to get to a central area, where we need to be, where we need to strike. Land speeders cross the sky, laying waste to concentrations of defenders, bringing down entire levels of blocks with fire. The bouncing forms of the assault marines and our new Primaris Inceptors move at our flanks, heading off heavier resistance to clear our way. We set off. The bounding leap of the marine is not possible while we have these inquisitorial gangs in our number. Tedious, but necessary. The Crusader squad takes up a perimeter around them as we move forward. Occasional knots of cultists spring out at us from alleyways, first floor walkways, doors, windows. We hack our way forward. These scum are not even a speed bump to the sons of Sigismund and Rogel Dawn. Our heavy armour is impossible to bring into the confines of this conurbation, but that would make it too easy anyway. We approach the main square, and then my sight becomes a thing of two worlds. I can see the real world as it is, but also there are lights and shimmering hazes. The Emperor shows me the way. He indicates my target. And there, at the base of the stairs to their main building, the real threat shows itself. For at the base of the wide stairs leading up to this palace, there are ranks of orderly, organised and disciplined troops, our first real resistance. Armoured and with power weapons, they must form some elite for this rabble. They're uniformed, but twisted. Their shields locked together. If I did not know better, I would say that their attire and weaponry was akin to that of a crusader with Sauerot, but their genesis is unimportant. The line troops are not my concern. It is their lord. He is standing at the top of the stairs, his armour blazing with flames. Twisted lava forms runes around him that drop liquid fire like promethium on the ground. He has a plethora of them around him, buzzing like bees. He is bright enough already, but to my sight, he shines like a star, but one I can look directly into without discomfort or wincing. He is one of my targets this day. Initiates charge forward, their neophytes in tow, but we have done this before. I've been a part of what we call, in our crusade, the stairway to the throne. I see that they are prepared, as 3 initiates run in a line some paces separated, sheathing their swords for a second to indicate compliance with my intent. I bellow to let them know I am coming. I run forward, then launch myself up, stepping on one, then another of my brothers as I hunch down and rise with my foot, elevating me further. The last one turns and stops, cradling his mighty hands together as I bound towards them. My foot lands in the cradle and he pushes up and out, so I am launched clear of the line of guards. I land on the stairs, but 3 paces below their leader, when I hear the Crusader Squad make contact with a wall of shields. The Chaos Warrior smiles at me, a toothy grin with too many teeth, that then slips as the lava runes around him are simply blown away. Literally. A wind that comes from the second Inquisitorial group. They tore down his defences, so I can do the rest. His axe comes down at me as he tries to retain the high ground. I easily move aside, angling the black blade in my hand so that his strike is deflected, but its momentum is not stopped. His axe goes into the marble stairs and he is overbalanced. It is child's play for me to twist and sever his head from his shoulders. A scream of 1,000 voices echoes around the square as we are all blown sideways, backwards, down, by the explosion of his body. I am caught in the fireball, but nothing of this evil will pass through my armour, for this is no normal power armour I wear today. As the Emperor's champion, I am honoured to wear the armour of faith. Ancient, powerful, thrice blessed by the God Emperor. And while I wear it, I shall fear no evil penetrating my guard, not unless they be the mightiest of adversaries, and this lacklustre lord is hardly that. The explosion and the effort of my brethren has cut down many of the enemy at the base of the stairs, but many get to their feet near as fast as my brethren, so they form up swiftly. Saulot Brachus points and chirrups out his order to Sloth. The huge Ogrin barrels into the line and brings it down. Their interlocked shields, previously a thing of strength, now their greatest weakness. As the initial 3 he strikes drag down a half dozen. The young trainee of the other Inquisitor is way ahead of the others and darts through a gap in the line. He moves amongst the rear of the enemies and stabs into the legs or back of any armoured men still standing. He may not be large, but he is swift and intelligent. The slightest assault from the rear is all that is required for my brothers to take them from the front. Their formation broken a second time, the heretics are torn to pieces by the Astartes. But oh, what is this? As the Inquisitors and their warriors make directly for the same walkway as me, Saulot's men, his slab shield Ogrin and his Crusader Knight forming up at the front just behind me, the rest in their shadow, I hear them. Thaddeus, do we have time? No, the ritual is nearing its conclusion. It's got to be now, or we face the wrath of the warp. Keep up, boy! But Master, the glyphs on the walls. We are walking into a fulcrum. We should be more cautious. Oh, really? You think you know better than I? Holy Throne, I question my decision every day. But you are proving even more dim-witted than I feared. We have no time for dalliance, boy. Keep your eyes on the prize, and keep up. Sloth, Sebastian, double time. I hear this and can see the coronas of power. My targets are before me. I run. They will keep up or they won't. I care not. My calling is too great. I pick up more speed when I come to the last corridor and see the large doors so obviously barred. The Emperor's own glamour shines from the edges of the doors, its hinges, its tops, its bottoms. Wherever there is but a millimetre open, I am invited to my destiny. I draw out multiple crack grenades and lob them at the doors, dead centre. The explosion smashes them apart and tears them off their hinges backward. Out of the smoke and falling masonry I come, making straight for the ritual. I can hear the Ogrin and the Crusader behind me as they are slowed by the debris, but not stopped. Before me is a scene from a fresco, a huge slab of antiquated design, lending their pantomime drama gravitas, I suppose. On it are 3 bodies ready to be slain. None are held down, none tethered. They simply lay there transfixed, with glazed eyes and frothing mouths, muttering heresies of the most debauched vileness. Around them is a circle of figures in robes, so akin to the garb of our own priesthood. Twisted mockeries of the shepherds of the Emperor. They will pay. But they are not my primary concern, for the light of the Emperor guides my way. He shows me my target again. Above them, on an upper walkway, a viewing gallery, there is a being. He looks human at the present, but the light from him is greater than any star. It is he I must face. It is he I must best. Half of the cultists now break from the ceremony, leaving on a minimum crew, one might say. They turn and begin to chant a different cant. Walls of fire and force and wind and masonry are thrown up by them, cutting them off from the attentions of the Inquisitors and their followers. I snap my gaze around and find the stairs up to this gallery. It is too high to jump. The walls and fixtures too flimsy for a powered armor man to use with certainty. So I head for these stairs. The ritual is not the center point. It is to feed this being. He is the danger, not they. Boy, where are you going? Boy! I can't do anything about those wards, but I might be able to help the champion. No, boy. This is a duel. You cannot intervene. Come back. I'll have your head for this. The young man heads off after me. I dash the stairs as fast as I can and remain able to turn at their summit. I crash through the locked door with one hack of the holy black sword, and there he is. He steps out of the darkness to meet me. I waste no time and salute him in the name of the Emperor. I challenge him, and it is accepted. He's a larger man as well, but still I dwarf him. He almost languidly draws his own blade. No armor, no power armor, only delicate silken robes. Yet his stance is not defensive. He is preparing to meet me, to fight me head on head. Good. Alas, this is when he sweeps his sword in the air and a wave of power comes out at me. But I am the Emperor's champion. I am his holy warrior, and the Emperor protects. I recall the litany of divine protection, and the Emperor intervenes. The wave of power is broken and whips around me without harm. My enemy shifts his stance as I bound towards him and unleash my fury. His surprise is palpable, writ across his countenance. We clash. My first 10 strikes are designed to push him back, my size and strength test to see how he fares. I will not underestimate this one. His blade carves light and sound through the air, making it difficult to make him out perfectly with my normal vision. But the light of the Emperor shines from him, clearly marks his outline, his position. My strokes were parried with ease. He has far more strength than he should. He is definitely not a baseline human anymore. Below me, the fray continues between the Inquisitors, my brethren Crusaders and the cultists. Flashes of shields being penetrated by bolts from the assassin, as if they were not even there. The Crusader attempting to cut his way through the shields, the Ogrin doing the same, bludgeoning wildly. A flicked eye shows me the cultists are reducing in number, but still their ritual continues. The boy may be behind me, but that is his choice. I cannot and will not divide my attention. My target is all I see now.
He pads around, shifting his feet for better control, preparing to unleash his speed, it seems. His blade whirls to create what he believes is an impenetrable barrier to my sight. The fool does not know who sends me. I slam my sword directly toward where he believes his torso is obscured. It passes through his effects with ease, and he is forced to somersault backwards like an elder or other Xenos deviant. The blessings of his gods have magnified him, but he is no match for the wrath of the Emperor. A bolt round punches into the wall behind him, and the boy has attempted to distract him. It has changed his path, taken him from the trap I had laid. Standing back as I was in mock confusion at his lights, he bounds left instead of right, and I am dragged after him instead of seeing him impaled on the holy black sword I wield. Damn his interference. I sweep my sword backwards and catch a small piece of debris, sending it back at the boy to let him know his intervention is not needed or desired. The beast and I now circle each other. The chanting below raises to a crescendo. I can see energies infusing it now, like worms of power crackling up its lids and proceeding up its body. The power grows as we spar, our blades clashing again and again. Sparks of differing hues and shades flash between our swords, as his unnatural effect changes them. I suppose some might call it mesmerizing, or even beautiful, but to me it is only a sign of delay. He is stalling, holding me off while his power grows. I force the issue. I use the next 20 strikes to maneuver him into a corner. He cannot see my plan at first, cannot avoid it as the truth dawns on him. He is fast, I am faster. He is strong, I am stronger. He thinks he is blessed by his lords, so takes my invitation and we test the theory. I strike down on him with all of my might, knowing he has no choice. He locks his sword to mine and we grind. We lean in, and I see his shifting features properly for the first time. Like a broken liquid mirror, his face is an ever-shifting parody of all that is pure and human. Glimpses of his future form arise and sink back again, as horns and teeth extend and elongate and then revert back again within a second. I must prevail. I slam my head into his, my helmet crashing into where a nose should be. I feel the impact, but see his eyes shift to the edges of his head, his nose flying up to his forehead before the impact. Yet I impact. He staggers back and I push him with all of my strength. His eyes are wide on his head, his stance unbalanced. He whirls on the spot and I can see the eyes spin out from his head like small globes on string that is ever extending. I've used his twisted powers against him. He is now dizzy and I see him lurch. I place myself in a crouch and put all of my force and weight, my skill, faith and zeal all into the one strike. The black sword shudders as it pierces his torso dead center, through his heart. I am certain that were it any blade but this holy sword, it would have shattered on his robes. But this blade is the Emperor's blade, as much as I am his champion, and it slides between his ribs and through him, punching out of the other side. He stops. Blood spills from his mouth and flows over my pauldron, his eyes wide. His raised sword arm slowly sags. The chanting below us stops. His sword slowly falls beside me. I see runes flash on it as I see it all in slow motion. My hands on my sword, the weight of the man on it. I cannot move fast enough. For some reason, I am aware that if that blade hits the ground, it will unleash the power built up. It is only now that I see that the light is coming from the sword, not really the man I have slain. The Emperor wishes me to destroy not only the wielder, but the blade itself. The longest second of my life flashes before my eyes, as I cannot stop what is about to happen. It is at the last second that a shadow falls over me. A hand darts out and grabs the hilt of the cursed blade. The boy. He darted in and yanks it up. His arms burst into flames and he screams. He cannot hold it for long. He has prevented it hitting the ground, but it is not deactivated. Power still flows from it, and the runes on its blade flash ever more powerfully. The boy locks eyes with my visor and looks upwards, as through clenched teeth. He then takes the last of his strength and hurls the blade into the air. I follow it due to his cue, and push him far back. He lands hard, of this I can hear, but he is now away from what I must do. The blade comes down tip first, desperately wanting to make contact with the platform, to be connected to the ground in any way it can to then discharge its foul effect. But I am ready.
I bring up the black sword with all of my might, every ounce of my strength. I shatter it. The black sword breaks the cursed blade, but a torrent of power is unleashed. I am carried off my feet and backwards. Far. I hit something. Hard. My eyes darken as I lose consciousness. The dust is settling around me. I am still alive. Death's fault. He wills it. I fight another day. Perhaps. I can feel my body is mostly broken. My mind swims in and out of wakefulness. I hear them, I think, above me. I barely recognize the voices as the Inquisitor and the young man. The one who saved us all. Despite my victory, had he not acted, perhaps this world would belong to the enemy now. Everyone is dead, and you drag me up here to see another carcass. Boy, you test my patience mightily today. I suppose saving the world by stopping the sword counts for nothing in your tally, eh, Master? You ignored my orders, involved yourself in a duel that, had it ended differently, would have meant that Marine would then behead you. So that's a no, then. Fair enough, Master. One more flippant word out of you. One, and you'll be taking another vow of silence. A quarter instead of just a month this time. You are warned. My apologies, Master. It must be my concussion. Always excuses with you. Master, this Marine is special. I feel it. We should enlist him. Tarban is dead. You have needs of a Templar guard. Request this one. Why? He is broken. He was the Emperor's champion, boy. That is the might you witnessed. His. Not this broken thing. Master, you said my only worthwhile skill, my only talent, was to discern the greatness in others. An admittance I wish I had never made. Nonetheless, I see greatness in him. He is fundamental to the Thaddeus. I can feel it. What you feel is shame. Shame at your errors. Shame at your actions. You merely attempt to move my eye from your shortcomings to this Marine. Master, you know that is not true. Deep down you do. I will prove it. And how, pray tell, will you do that? We will take off his helmet. And what will that prove? That you are right and I am a fool? Or that you are right and I can discern greatness when it is in my presence? So very cleverly put. Do it, but do not think I am with you, or placated by your obsequiousness. I am not. I feel hands at the latches of my helm. No, it must be removed ceremonially. By my brethren, by the chaplains. He does so anyway. The air is warm. Flecks of burning ash land on my face. It is enough to make me wake more, but my eyes will not open. You see? Look at him. I was right. Look! I see a broken Astartes. Master, you know who he looks like. Who he may well be. The sons of Sigismund and Dawn are not known for their gene seed to produce the effect of the salamanders, or the others who mutate to be a likeness of their sire. They do not. It is a sign. Perhaps. I doubt it, but perhaps. If he survives, I will ask for him by name. What is it? Barbon. I think I heard that his name is Barbon. I lose consciousness again. Days pass. I am told that I was, as is usual, taken from the field by my brothers, with pomp and circumstance. The chaplains removed the holy armour, the holy blade, and put them back into their places of sanctity, ready for the next time one of us is called. I spend time in the apothecary. Am interviewed by the chaplains to make certain I have not been corrupted by that which I fought. Later, I was released and presented to the marshal. Our leader,
the lord of our crusade. I walk, do so stiff-backed, despite the discomfort. The chamber is well lit, candles across every column, braziers between them. There stands my lord, and with him the other Inquisitor, this Thaddeus. His younger man is the only one of his entourage present. I am later to find that they were wiped out. My lord nods at me, a token of the honor I have won for the chapter, the respect he now has for me. I step up and kneel, and he begins. You have done well, Barbon. Has struck down the foes of the Emperor himself. By your actions are the evil destroyed, and the world for which we fought is saved. But your trials are not yet done. I will now that you consider this offer an honor, but one you may not wish to perform. I cannot order you. It must be accepted with good grace. Looking up, I nod for him to proceed. For years now, since the destruction of the arch-traitor and heretic Gauge Van Deer, our order has been linked with this Inquisitor and his line. He indicated the tall, willowy man. He didn't need to, of course. I am aware of them. I remember their conversation now. We owe him a debt. It has always been a Black Templar that is with them in their labours. It was a Thaddeus that brought us into the inner palace, tore down the wards and found secret passages to allow us in. Without this, perhaps those days may not have ended as they did. But the debt is one thing, the duty is another. It is a black temper that is tied to this particular Inquisitor because of what they are and what they represent. They call themselves the Wisdom, the Thaddeus, and ever otherwise unable to move with certainty. Hence it is a Black Templar that is their shield, their sword and their warlord. For when the Wisdom finally declares something anathema, a foe to be destroyed for the greater Imperium, then it must be a warrior of unbridled faith, certainty and wrath that carries this out. It is also our agreement for the Wisdom, the Thaddeus, that is known to have strayed before. So it is proper that a holy warrior is there, to not only protect their person, but to safeguard their purity, their goal, and their very soul. But before you say aye or nay, know this. An Inquisitor carries the seal of the Emperor and does many things in his name, and in the company of those that may repulse you, the witch especially. And it will be your duty to be his sword, but to know that he will have many weapons in his service that may not be in keeping with your oaths. Your oath to the Thaddeus is an oath to Malcador the hero, is to the God Emperor himself. It does not negate your previous vows, but can put them in abeyance for the greater good of the Imperium. This duty, this honor, this debt to the Thaddeus must be paid. So it is thee, or another. What say you? I think to myself, I do not wish to take this oath. I do not like this Thaddeus. But when has want or liking ever mattered to a Templar? But let us see if there is anything I can redeem from this thing. The Thaddeus I am to be sworn to. But what does that mean? What is it? The Inquisitor steps forward. It is a rank, a station, a way of thought, investigation, a method of hunting down the scum within our realm. But it is the rank, not the person. So when I expire, it will pass to another. Your understudy? I indicate the boy. Alas so. I can understand why you would not want to take this oath. He said this with a sneer. Not at me, I am sure, but at the thought of passing his precious torch to the man next to him. And I look at them both. I cannot find anything to like in this one, nor anything to admire, if I am honest. But the other, his successor, he is brave, intelligent, patient and humble. But the fire in his eyes, the devotion, it shines. I can can serve him. I look to my lord. I will take this task, no matter how onerous, no matter how it may besmirch my honor. It was the will of the Emperor that I became his champion. It is his will again that I serve this Thaddeus. I accept the trial. My lord nods. Good. I have a few stipulations, says the Inquisitor. This is not all one way. I have to accept you too, Barbon. And I give thee 3 oaths to let you know them, so you can still recant. The first, you will serve the Thaddeus without hesitation. The second, you will never reveal your face before other Astartes, never-born scholars, or other Inquisitors, under any circumstances. The third, you will train against multiple assailants, and will not practice dueling to the exclusion of all else. I draw in my breath through my teeth. He smiles sardonically. This is not against me. This is to force me to withdraw, to recant, so that he can berate and belittle that braver young man at his side. It is a game. I will not play it. Of course, I do not understand, but I will do it. And thus, I, Barbon of the Black Templars, one who has been the Emperor's own champion, swore these oaths. My lord left, and I arose. As I too left, I heard them. They always forget the hearing of the Astartes, these Inquisitors. Happy? Will I get a quarter of silence if I am honest? This once. No. But do not be trite or flippant, or I'll sew your mouth shut myself. He is who I believe him to be. I know it. Look at him, the resemblance, the skill, the power, the will. He should have died. He is who he appears to be. Romantic fairy tales. He is a marine you are besotted with. Nothing more. The older Inquisitor leaves. The boy still mutters away to himself as I depart. None can know the Emperor has sent you back to us. Not yet. For he, the God Emperor of mankind, would not have done so for any mean or meagre reason, any mean or meagre task. For you to be returned, it can only mean one thing. We will have need of your power, your courage, your example. For indeed, he tells us that the end times are here, that the final battle is to be waged soon, and he sends back his greatest grandson, his greatest warrior, to wage it. "300 years later, the present day. The two men stood across from each other, the ravages of time fully writ on the face of the smaller man, despite the many redos he had taken. The other, the Astartes, had not one sign of all of the years between that time and now. The march of time touched him only insomuch as the multitude of scars he now had. I will not serve him. My oaths prevent it, stated Barbon. There has been a Black Templar with the Thaddeus for over 5,000 years, since the age of apostasy, the reign of blood. When we, the Thaddeus, helped the forces of Sigismund's eternal crusade into the palace, smashing the walls and glyphs protecting the outer areas, we led you in. And for that we were given a right hand, a hammer to smash the foes of the Emperor when we had sniffed them out, the demon, and all that cavort with them. Do you think the demon less a threat than the witch that summons him? Are you that small and single-minded after all this time? After all you have seen? I am an Emperor's champion, touched by the Emperor's light himself, given vision and cause and purpose. How could you, even you, ask this of me? Especially you. I will not serve a witch.
How dare you? You will do as you are told, Astartes. You claim to be his symbol, the very hand of the Emperor, but you are not. That is me. Me and my brother Inquisitors. It is we, not thee, who were mandated by the direct order of the God Emperor himself. It is our order that have given his seal, his writ, his authority, to go wherever we need, to requisition all that we need from any that we need, without restraint. Who art thou to gainsay the will of the Emperor? Who art thou to deny his servants, created by Malcador the hero, by the order of the very master of mankind? Who art thou to say me nay? How dare you? If you so much as mention this again, so much as think it, what will you do? I will send you back. What? I will send you back to your order, your chapter, the Black Templars. At this, Thaddeus now drew himself up to his full height and walked towards Barbon, snarling. I will commandeer a vessel. I will stop at every planet on our way. I will make it blatant. I will be honest. I will shout it from every mountain, every city, every rocks on our way. Everyone will hear me champion my truth, and it will be thus. The word of the Black Templars, the oath of the Black Templars, the honour of the Black Templars is worth nothing. It is a shallow, base exhale of breath with no more strength, no more power than a grok's fart. Their word is worth nothing. You wouldn't. What? What would you do? Slay me? You would slay the Thaddeus, and make every word I proclaim right. Are you threatening me, Astartes? No. No, I am not. Do not test me again, Barber. You swore an oath to serve the Thaddeus. Not me, not Ordo Malleus, not an Inquisitor. The Thaddeus. A pity, perhaps, that you have had me as your master. But that may not be the case for very much longer. You will serve the Thaddeus, no matter who it is. You have stomached my tenure, as pathetic as it may have been. But you will then get the honour of serving the greatest Thaddeus of all time. A Psyker he may be, but the Thaddeus he will be. You are here, Barbon, because of Deus Imperator Volt. The God Emperor wills it. Would you refute your own God, dear friend? Warrior of his own blood, his own genes. Why will you not trust in him, in his mighty design? And have you ever considered that his design is for a Black Templar to be present when the Thaddeus is a witch and strays? That it was always a Black Templar that would end the line? That it may be my hand that has to separate Tarquinus' head from his shoulders? The old man looked stunned, took a step back, then smiled deeply and warmly, his eyes glistening. If it is his will, it is his will. If it has to be done, at least it should be someone who knows him well enough to judge, so it won't be your fault, old friend. If it has to be done, then Deus Imperator Volt, the God Emperor, wills it. Will I have the strength? Yes. If it is required, yes, you will. But more importantly, in the days that are coming, there will be such dire threat, so much need for extremes, that you will judge with better eyes. Have faith in the design and in the boy. Perhaps you will have the greatest strength of all, the strength to know when to trust, when all others would not, and the strength to do the hardest thing of all, the strength to not strike. You still believe what you said when we met? What?
I heard you as I left the chapel. I heard you." A moment of silence as Thaddeus walked the mindscape of his memory. Then his face softened still. "You heard that? After all this time, my friend, only now do you mention it?" My answer, every year, every month together, has proven that to me more and more. I now have no shadow of a doubt. "Then tell me who you think I am. End the riddle that has been playing on my mind for over 300 years. You know, really, Barbon. You see it in the mirror each day. You feel it in the regime. You know, really. You just do not want to believe, as it would offend your humble bearing. Then free me of my regime. I must be all I can be, if the threat is as you foresee. If you do that, everyone will know who you are. Everyone. But will it matter anymore? Perhaps. It may end up drawing more attention than you and Tarquinus can manage. But then, for him, as with you, it has never been, and never could have been, easy. All right, Barbon, I free you of your regimes. You may train as you were always meant to train. You must become what you always were meant to become." The Marine breathed in and seemed to increase in size, seemed to tower now in a way he had never done before, not since the first time they had met. "But I do not free you of your second oath to the Thaddeus. You will keep your face covered amongst others of your kind, scholars, never-born, and inquisitors. Because if you are ever found out, in that instant, in that very moment, you will become a target for all of the forces of hell." I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you've enjoyed the story so far, and will join us on the weekly entries as a result, and will like and subscribe. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.